Welcome to the fourth hearing of Portfolio Committee number 8, Customer Service for the Inquiry into Budget Estimates 2025-2026. I acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, the traditional custodians on the lands on which we are meeting today. I pay my respects to elders past and present and celebrate the diversity of Aboriginal peoples and their ongoing cultures and connections to the lands and waters of New South Wales. I also acknowledge and pay my respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people joining us today. My name is Emma Hurst and I am Chair of the Committee. I welcome Minister Saffin and accompanying officials to this hearing. Today the Committee will examine the proposed expenditure for the portfolio of Small Business, Recovery and North Coast. I ask everyone in the room to please turn their mobile phones to silent. Parliamentary privilege applies to witnesses in relation to the evidence they give today. However, it does not apply to what witnesses say outside the hearing. I urge witnesses to be careful about making comments to the media or to others after completing their evidence. In addition, the Legislative Council has adopted rules to provide procedural fairness for inquiry participants. I encourage committee members and witnesses to be mindful of these procedures. Welcome and thank you for making the time to give evidence today. All witnesses will be sworn prior to giving evidence. Minister, I remind you, you do not need to be sworn as you have already sworn an oath to your office as a Member of Parliament. I will also remind you, Mr Head and Mr Wells, that you have already been sworn before this committee during this inquiry and therefore do not need to be sworn in again. For all other witnesses, could I ask you to please state your name, position title and swear either an oath or an affirmation, beginning with the first witness to my left.
Good morning, Chair. Cassandra Gibbons, Executive Director, Customer Care and Business Bureau at Service New South Wales. I solemnly, sincerely and truly declare and affirm that the evidence now about to be given by me shall be the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chair. Malcolm Arthur Lanyon, Chief Executive Officer of the New South Wales Reconstruction Authority. I swear that the evidence now about to be given by me shall be the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help me God.
Good morning, Chair. Ashley Abbott, Acting Head of Preparedness and Recovery at the New South Wales Reconstruction Authority. I solemnly, sincerely and truly declare and affirm that the evidence now about to be given by me shall be the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chair. Acting Commissioner, New South Wales Small Business Commission, Catherine Ellis. I swear that the evidence now about to be given by me shall be the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help me God.
Thank you. Could I ask Mr Graham to come forward?
Andrew Graham, Chief Finance and Operating Officer at the Reconstruction Authority. I solemnly, sincerely and truly declare and affirm that the evidence now about to be given by me shall be the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Thank you. Ms Whale?
Thank you, Emma Whale, Acting Head of Adaptation, Mitigation and Reconstruction for the Reconstruction Authority. I solemnly, sincerely and truly declare and affirm that the evidence now and about to be given by me shall be the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Thank you. And I just take the moment to remind Mr Graham and Ms Whale that if you do come forward for questions at any point during the procedures, to just bring your nameplate with you, just to assist Hansard as well. Thank you. Today's hearing will be conducted from 9:15 to 5:30. We are joined by the Minister for the morning session from 9:15 to 1 p.m, with a 15-minute break at 11 a.m. In the afternoon, we will hear from departmental witnesses from 2 p.m. to 5:30 p.m, with a 15-minute break at 3:30 p.m. During these sessions, there will be questions from the opposition and crossbench members only, and then 15 minutes allocated for government questions at 10:45 a.m, 12:45 p.m and 5:15 p.m. We'll begin with questions from the crossbench and I'll throw straight to Ms Sue Higginson.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair. I apologise for my voice and if you can bear with me, and we'll do what we can. Thank you. Minister, do you acknowledge that when you first came to government, and this was before you were Minister, the plan was to spend $1.5 billion on the Resilient Homes program for 6,000 buybacks, house raises and retrofits?
I advocated for 1.5 billion, as everybody did in our community, as you did, Miss Higginson, and we'd been led to believe that that was what we might get. And all of us accepted that. We first heard it from a very senior official and we ran with it. However, the government made it clear it was 2,000 houses all up. That's still on the National Party website. And also, when it was announced, the Resilient Homes program on the 28th of October in North Lismore with Premier Perrottet and Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, they said it would be 2,000 at the time. But we had been led to believe that what would go forward would be 6,000, 1.5 billion, and we ran with it. And I ran hard as a local member. And at some point, particularly through the Community Elected Leaders Forum, we knew that that wasn't going to be a reality under any government. And we continued to work with what was the official announcement of the 750 million that we got, joint state federal, and an extra 100 million that we managed to get from Premier Minns, and the Resilient Lands program of 100 million. And we worked within that, and we're still working within that, the 2,000.
So, thank you. So, when was it clear to you that that 1.5 billion and the 6,000 was not what we were?
Look, I can't remember the exact time, but it was clear early on, actually in 2022. But we as a community and as elected officials and members, we went hard for it because, you know, that's what we wanted. And I said at the time we should have gone for more, as a good local member would, given the utter devastation that we faced in the Northern Rivers. But it was clear early on that that wasn't on the cards. It did come, and look, I don't want to name senior public officials, but it did come from a particular one, and we know who it is, and indicated to us that might happen, and that was what they were putting forward. So we just ran hard with it.
And so then, so at what point did you then explain to the community that it wasn't going to be the 6,000 and the 1.5 billion? At what point did you explain that to the community?
The community.
Yeah.
Again, I don't recall the date, but it was initially in an article in the Echo. In the Echo newspaper. That was the first time, and then I did it in various media interviews, columns, etc., etc.
And so then, so what do you say, Minister, about the fact that the community was promised the 6,000, and where do the losers now sit?
Well, they weren't promised. We took it as something that might happen, and we ran really hard with it. And I didn't promise it. I promised to go hard to get every dollar, every cent we could possibly get.
And so then, so where do the 6,000 was very real. They were very real numbers, and they were, at the time, the best assessment as to what the need was for the community of the Northern Rivers to be able to recover. So again, what do we do with those people now that just don't have anything available to them?
There's a lot of people who are in the most, how would I put this, the most risky area received buybacks. So a lot of people receive buybacks. There'll be more people now getting house raising and retrofitting, and I hope over years that there will be the development of a state mitigation fund, because I can remember in 2022 there'd been a state mitigation fund and it had about $10.8 million in it. And so over time, some of this work will continue to happen. But some people didn't want to buy back either. They just don't. Yeah. And some people wanted it. As you know, Miss Higginson, initially, a lot of people say, I want this, I want that, I need this, I need that. Within 12 months, they change their mind because it's a big shock and it's trauma. as you and I well know,
Yeah.
the trauma and the shock. So people change. Also, I hope that we'll be able to do some of those mitigation, and that means both soft and hard mitigation and adaptation features, because we now have the adaptation plans happening.
So what do you say? What do you say now about the fact that the raises and retrofits and where we stand now, the progress rate, as I understand it from questions you've responded to that I've asked, is that there is only 1% progress. There was those originally promised 4,000 house raises and retrofits, and of those, only 41 have been completed. We take that's a 1% in just 3 years. Why is it in that condition?
The buybacks, it was decided that the buybacks would be done first, and that was decided early on in 2022 when it was announced. So that was a decision made that we'll focus on buybacks because they're the most at risk for the people.
What about the fact that, as we saw with Cyclone Alfred, what that actually means, though, is that we're leaving more people at risk of harm because they're the ones that are going to stay where they are, conditional on the fact they're going to have a raise or a retrofit.
Look, I come back to it was decided that the buybacks would be first. This was the first time this program had ever been done at scale. And as critical as I was at times, which is all on the public record, I understood it had never been done like this before. It was massive. And the assessments that have been done it's a retreat program. And the assessments that have been done show that retreat is best done when we're not in recovery. We were doing it in recovery. So we're trying to help people recover at the same time we're doing a retreat. And that's complicated. There's no easy answer to this. And I'm not justifying the things that I thought could have happened better, which again are on the public record, but it's very difficult to manage something like that. And to the people who are still on the floodplains, we're now doing a lot more work on better evacuation, early warnings. And one of the things that I'm really clear about is the bomb forecasts. We have to do early warning. And I've watched our combat agencies and also RA, standing up with them side by side, doing more of the work for the early warning. And I've said to the combat agencies that you do the early warnings, I'll back you in when people say, oh, I moved and I shouldn't have.
Yeah.
Because
Cyclone Alfred was a really good example.
A good example. Yeah. And I did the videos on that on the SES saying why we're going early. Because yes, you mightn't be seeing the water, but if this cyclone stays on the trajectory, we'll have power lines down in our front yard. We'll have trees down. We'll have all of that happening. So
do you think then? So just based on the evidence you've given now, we would be in a much better position if we had managed to achieve that 1.5 billion commitment and still had those 6,000 assessed properties with works in progress.
Oh, look, the more money we get, of course we'd be in a better position. Anyone would be, anybody who's gone through a disaster. But if you think back to just before 2019, in New South Wales, it was about $158,000 spent on disaster. It's now trending up to over 9 billion. So no government can afford all of that.
And so then what about the raises and retrofits and the fact that we are only 1% now?
It's a bit more than 1% now, and I'll get Mr. Lanyon and the team to give you the exact figures, but we've started to speed it up. In the same way, we're selling houses, auctioning houses, because I said that I want them to be sort of steamrolled, the selling of them.
Yeah. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Minister. Thank you for coming here today.
Good morning, Chair.
Thank you. I've just got a few questions to start with in regards to your portfolio on small business. The Business Connect program is scheduled to close on the 30th of September this year. I understand that Business Connect has provided thousands of regional small businesses with free tailored advice on financial planning, digital marketing, and disaster recovery. Once the Business Connect program closes, I'm just wondering how the government will ensure that regional operators who already face higher insolvency risks, skill shortages, and digital disadvantage are not left without this critical support from the program.
Sure. Business Connect, yes, will cease. And there's two things I'll say about Business Connect. Firstly, it was never secured funding. It was always had to go for an annual allocation, so it wasn't locked in. And secondly, with the business concierge service that operates with Service New South Wales and the business charter, people will still access services that help them with business. And some of that, there'll still be the webinars that were made for Business Connect in a whole range of areas. They'll still be available through Service New South Wales. And businesses won't be turned away. Now, I know that will put some extra load on Service New South Wales and on the team, but I know the business concierge service well, and it does provide a great service. There's about 100 odd, but 75 that I know of frontline. I know them well, I know what they do, and they'll continue to provide those services. And with Business Connect, two other things I'll say. It actually was a program that started about 30 years ago. It was federally funded. One of the people connected with Business Connect, he and I, know each other, and we were around when it started. It started in the recession times, then eventually it came over to the state. It was in Treasury. In 2021, Treasury did a review, and that they said in that review that there needed to be more clarity about its purpose, because it had started for startups and it had morphed into other areas. And I mean, Service New South Wales will give you more detail, but the way I saw it, it was doing a bit of both. It had morphed into other areas. And of course, I don't like to see a good program go. And I'm not saying it wasn't a good program, but given the budgetary constraints facing the government and certain things they'd inherited, and I heard what the Premier said in hearings here the other day about Business Connect, it was one of those that it was decided that it would go.
Thank you. You mentioned that there wasn't secure funding each year, and it sort of needed to be decided. Could I get the total allocation as well as the actual expenditure for Business Connect in 23, 24 and 24, 25?
To my knowledge, it was $10 million for the program.
And that was the actual expenditure was the same?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Thanks.
the same.
Thank you. And so the forecasted savings for the government for this year was that 10 million as well?
There would have been a little bit spent already, I would say, because it continues to the 30th of September. The actual amount, I'm not sure, but given that it went over that year, there would be some extra, additional money would have been spent to take it through to the 30th of September to be able to comply with all the contractual arrangements.
Yeah, understood. Do you have any evaluations or KPI results for Business Connect over the last few years, including the number of businesses assisted, hours of advice delivered, outcomes such as job creation or business survival rates?
Look, I do, and I got that from Service New South Wales and also from the acting Small Business Commissioner. And people were very happy with the service. It was a high percentage of people who'd engaged with it. But I'll leave it for Service New South Wales to give you the actual figures, or the acting Small Business Commissioner.
Thank you. I'll probably grab those in a little bit, but I'm assuming that those KPIs were used in some way to make the decision to close down the program.
The decision to close down the program was that it was something that was delivered for free and that there were other services available. And particularly now, when it started, there was no internet. You know, I lived in the world of no internet. Okay. When I came into, I know. When I came into this place in your chamber, I was still handwriting things. So now, you know, there's so much more available for people online. And some of those webinars, there's also information on the Australian Small Government Business website. So there's a lot more, and people are used to operating in that world. And also, you know, there's work that's being done across Service New South Wales on the digital platforms helping people. So it was one of the programs that was a free program, and it was one that didn't survive the budgetary constraints to deliver all the frontline services that the government's doing.
Thank you. Was there any sort of consideration, and you know, I've spoken previously with, you know, Minister Dominello in his term in Parliament, you know, in regards to that that sort of divide of the community that feel uncomfortable to actually access programs online. What will be done for those small businesses, particularly those in regional areas or remote areas of New South Wales, that, you know, either don't feel comfortable to be able to access these services online, or feel that they need that additional support where they can?
They can still get support through the business concierge, and they can ring, so that they don't have to go online, and they'll either get direct support or be referred to where they can get that support. And also with the advent of the Business Bureau, the Business Charter, there is a lot more happening for small business through Service New South Wales. But yes, they can ring. I think it's 137788, is that right? Yeah, 137788. So they can still ring.
Okay. Within, you know, we were talking a little bit about those KPIs that were looked at in regards to the program and how it was performing. Was there also any kind of data around the breakdown of Business Connect service delivery by regional and remote areas compared to, say, city-based businesses? Because my understanding is this was something that was more used by those small regional businesses. Is that data that was looked at and also considered in the change of this program?
I don't have that data, and will you be able to provide that data, Mr. Wells?
Okay, so it was data that was collected.
I don't know.
Okay.
I haven't been given that data on the regional breakdowns. Ms. Gibbons?
Business Connect operates statewide, so those services are available to regional and metro businesses. We have 10 providers that operate and cover different regions across the state. So there's been, you know, they've all been available to businesses throughout the state.
Sorry, so the question was there data collected around the breakdown of that service delivery? Like, was it uptaken more by regional and remote areas compared to, say, small businesses in city areas?
I can come back to you in the afternoon on that if you like.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
No worries.
Yeah, thank you.
And Minister, was any modelling undertaken on the likely impact of Business Connect's closure on small regional business employment or the economic resilience of disaster-affected communities?
Look, I considered that because there's about 10 people in Service New South Wales who provide it, and then there were a number of providers, and I know some of the providers, and I've met with them. The providers will continue to run their businesses. As I understand it, it's not their only business. They're engaged in business, and they also brought people in to deliver the number of hours that were available under Business Connect, which was up to 8. That wasn't always used, the 8. And those people, again, are from small business sectors. So as I understand it, those people are already in businesses or are in jobs, and the 10 with Service New South Wales will stay with Service New South Wales. So I did consider that, Chair, of course.
Yeah, thank you. On notice, are you able to provide any of the modelling of that you looked at within those considerations?
That was me looking at it as a responsible minister and considering those things, and particularly, I have to say, as a Labor member, considering about jobs. So I looked at that very carefully.
Thank you. Opposition?
Thank you very much. Good morning, Minister. Minister, are you aware of what the average Australian business failure rate is?
The average?
Australian business rate, failure rate?
The value rate of...
The failure rate of small business in
failure
Australia,
rate.
yeah.
Sorry, I thought you said the value rate. That's why I was looking at you.
No, that's fine.
Rather oddly.
Yep, the failure rate of small businesses in Australia. Are you aware of what that figure is?
Look, what I'm aware of is that 20% of businesses across Australia fail in the first year, and also 60% fail within 3 to 5 years. Because, when I've looked at insolvencies, I've sort of dug into that, and I see that that's happened over a long period of time. That's not new, that failure rate. But what I've seen is more businesses entering than exiting. So the numbers for businesses starting up, new businesses, the entry rate is higher than the exit rate.
Thank you, Minister. And Minister, is that something that you would think, as the Minister for Small Business, you'd like to address in terms of being able to reduce the small business failure rate in New South Wales?
Look, of course I'd like to reduce the small business failure rate, but I'm talking about something that has been a trend for a long, long time. It's not new. In terms of insolvencies, I've done a deep dive into insolvencies, and there's a couple of things around it. One is they're starting to trend towards pre-pandemic levels, and this is from the Reserve Bank of Australia and also, ABS figures. So they're starting to trend to pre-pandemic. With the pandemic, there was a lot of extra cash flow that businesses received. They also received the ability not to have to pay directly to the ATO when things were due. So there were a whole range of things like that. When the ATO started calling in, some of the debts owed to them, and once we got out of the money, the JobKeeper and all those things, that started to change with the insolvencies. But what the Reserve Bank of Australia say, it's trending to pre-pandemic levels for insolvencies. I mean, I've done a really deep dive into it, because when I saw, the figures with insolvencies, of course, like everybody, I looked at it, I was concerned. There was also one report I saw in one of the local papers, I can't remember what it was, and it reported a high figure, and I thought that seemed to be out of step with what I was reading, Reserve Bank of Australia. What I looked at is the way they're reporting. So reporting's done Series 1 and Series 2, and the reporting is when a business goes into insolvency, it gets a tick and it gets measured, but then each step of the way with the insolvency process, it can get another tick and it can be double reporting. So it's Series 1 and Series 2. So when I did read one report where it reported over 7,000, it was clear they'd done the Series 1 and Series 2. Also, one other thing to do with the insolvencies and business failure is that a lot of them, or at least 20% I would say, are small business restructure, and they come back online within 3 months of going into insolvency, and they keep their employees as well.
Thank you, Minister. So, Minister, you referred previously to the Accenture report of 2021 commissioned by New South Wales Treasury into the effectiveness of Business Connect in New South Wales. Now, in that assessment, it outlined that the average small business failure rate for Australia was 13%, and that when it came to Business Connect clients, the average small business failure rate was 1%. Why would you be scrapping a program that is able to turn around businesses and actually provides such a benefit in trying to divert businesses from failing?
Look, I read that, and I read the figures you're talking about because I read that report, obviously, And I come back to the point that people in that situation who access Business Connect, they can still access the services through Service New South Wales Business Concierge. They'll still be able to access services.
But, Minister, are they the same services that they're getting from Business Connect?
They'll be very similar. I've looked at it actually, and that was one of the things that report also said. It said we needed clarity because Business Connect had sort of diversified into a whole lot of other areas. And some of the areas, it's not like for like, but I've looked at the table of what the Business Concierge Business Bureau does, Business Connect, and a lot of it that's done through Business Concierge is what people got under Business Connect.
But Minister, under Business Concierge, will businesses be able to access 8 hours of business advisory services?
I don't know how many hours they'll actually access, and I'll leave that with Service New South Wales, but they'll still get a service. They'll still be able to do it. One thing I always encourage, it's just very local, and, we're all local. I encourage businesses to be active with their business chambers as well and be members because they get services through them as well.
So, Ms Saffin, you say they'll be able to access these services, but in estimates on Wednesday, Mr Wells outlined to the committee that, and I quote, "There are templates and there are online resources and other things that those business concierges could direct businesses to because they do have a personal relationship and a case management relationship with each of those businesses they look after." That's not advisory services, that's effectively telling them where to find it on the website.
Look, we take our advice in all sorts of ways. All of us do. We live in the world of AI, all of us. We live in different worlds. We take our advice in various ways, and it's not always direct person to person. Of course we love person to person. We all love that. That's just human. But they can still access services. They're not going to be denied service totally. That's not going to happen.
So what training and experience do these business concierge workers at Service New South Wales have?
I'll leave that for Service New South Wales to answer their particular training. It's they'll be able to tell you exactly what they do.
Do they have the same background and requirements that Business Connect advisors have?
Some of them may have, who work in that area in Business Concierge, because they have to understand about business. They have to know about business.
How many Business Connect advisors are there across the state?
I was told that there was over 100. Around 100?
100 advisors.
Yeah,
Business
100.
Connect advisors.
And how many business concierge representatives are there in the Business Bureau?
Frontline, there's around 100, but there's 75 frontline across the state.
Are you sure that's the correct figure, madam?
It's 75 business concierges, but we have a frontline team including specialists of 107.
Yeah.
And is that FTE?
That's FTE.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It is.
And so there will be, what is at the moment, nearing 200, reduced down to 75. Is that correct? If you put Business Connect and the Business Concierge service together?
You can't compare someone giving 8 hours with 75 FTE or 107 FTE. So you can't compare.
You can't compare. So
no.
Are you viewing at all that you're going to have an increase in advisors in the Business Concierge at all, or to pick up that slack?
I think that's a question for Minister Dibb.
You're the Minister for Small Business.
I'm the
here.
Minister for Small Business, and I'll certainly make it known what I think should happen, but that's a question for Minister Dibb with Service New South Wales.
So it seems like the Ministry for Small Business is abrogating its responsibility here when it comes to small business and just handing it over to Service New South Wales. Shouldn't there be more service on the front line for small businesses across New South Wales?
Mr Farlow, you can verbal me all you like, but I will make sure that small business, as the Minister for Small Business, has access to the services that it requires. And yes, Business Connect is going. And as I understand it, not everybody accessed up to 8 hours, but Business Concierge and also with the Charter, they'll still be able to access services.
But what are these services, Minister?
Well, I'll tell you some. I'll tell you some that they'll be able to access. Business planning, this is through the Business Bureau. Frontline team. Business planning, check if they have a business plan, offer template links, suggest free low-cost planning workshops, introduce local councils' business programs, licensing and compliance. They can use the service New South Wales Business Licence Finder. It works effectively. Cover off on their ABN, GST, permits, food safety, building planning consents, etc. Finance and funding. Direct to New South Wales Small Business Grants portal, any open programs, explain record keeping, obligations, bookkeeping options, provide links to free financial literacy resources, market research and marketing, show how to use ABS data and local council economic profiles, introduce Service New South Wales online tools, marketing webinars and other events, and digital readiness. Access digital capability, website payment security, direct to digital solutions program, and cybersecurity advice, support network connection. There's a whole lot more that they will be able to still, small business or people going into small business will be able to access through Service New South Wales.
Minister, in your own Small Business Charter Progress Report, you stated that 53,943 hours of business support through advisory services were delivered. How many of those were delivered by Business Connect?
That is a reference to the Business
That
Connect
was-
services.
Okay, so
Yeah,
all
that
of
was
those,
Business Connect.
So all of those advisory services are Business Connect. How are you going to provide those 53,943 hours of advisory services that small business across New South Wales have required with Business Connect going?
Well, it mightn't be 59,000, but they'll still get hours, they'll still get access, and they'll still get some service from the Business Bureau and the business concierges.
Will that be... But this is solely... You've got the Business Bureau operating at the moment. They're not providing these advisory services. Who's going to provide those advisory services
They
for business
will-
across New South Wales?
Yeah. I'll tell you some here, okay? Some of the webinars that will be available, and this was part of what people who went through Business Connect already access these, and they'll continue to access them, and that'll be the 3 steps to digital marketing growth, social media strategy, website best practices, cash flow tips, tax time preparation, pricing strategies, understanding customer value, first 18 months in business. That's important given we know the failure rates of business in the first year. Customer journey and sales funnel, product market fit, business planning, selling to government, business resilient, networking for growth, women in business program. These will still be available. One of the things, and it was after, disasters, because businesses who were hit by disasters, one of the things that we devised was 7 5-minute modules for businesses on how to be resilient, and that applies to, people who setting up businesses. And I would hope that we would be able to run more of that in the future. It's been quite successful.
Minister, your progress report on the Small Business Charter again has an example or a case study of concrete growth. Allcrete and Sons in Bogangar in the Tweed Shire.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is a story of a company which has been helped by the Business Connect Specialist Advisory Service. And I'll quote the case study. Business Connect advisors help them sharpen their value proposition, revamp their website with a glossy project gallery and testimonials, improve social media engagement, and crucially find customers. Antoni and Franzine also worked with Business Connect procurement specialists to prepare for tender submissions, ensuring they were compliant to government expectations. Their efforts paid off. They attracted new clients and secured a contract for concrete workers at a New South Wales government research facility. Can this service be provided by the Business Bureau?
They'll be able to provide some of the services, yes, through the Business Bureau. They won't have the 8 hours that they get now, but they'll be able to provide some of that. And a lot of small businesses, they might get support through Business Connect, but that's not the only support they get. They go and buy services. They do a whole range of things themselves. They do a whole lot of other stuff. So it's not just reliant on Business Connect alone. When you run a small business, you have inputs from everywhere. And I know that from, engaging with small business.
Just to that point of engagement, before you made the decision to get rid of the Business Connect program, what consultation was undertaken with local business chambers, local councils and small businesses themselves about the program and its operation?
I had some conversations with some local councils. I had some conversations with some regional business chambers and some of locals. I also had a conversation with Business New South Wales.
And were they supportive of Business Connect being removed?
Who would want a program removed if you talk to business and it's about business? So I think you know the answer. But what I did get was it needed to change if it continued, because it was conflated with some of the other stuff that happened with the Business Bureau, and that there was more available through the chambers and more available online that they took advantage of.
Minister, do you think it's acceptable that 110 days after the flood event we had in the Mid-North Coast and the Hunter, that only 370 applications for the small business grants out of 1,200 plus have been approved?
I would like everybody who applies for a small business grant to get it as quick as they could possibly get it. And anything I can do to speed that up, I do, and I make that known. But sometimes people do put in applications, and look, and I've lived through this with a whole lot of people helping them, that they don't always have all the information that's required to start with, and they have to go back and do it again. But I can remember 2022, and I will step back, I can remember people waiting 12 months and documents being lost, and people having to do it 3 times because they were lost, and I helped them through it. So my point is, we've come a long way from 2022, where they're at least more readily available and there's more services available, and I've seen Service New South Wales on the ground in these places helping. But there's some more up-to-date figures. Do we have them?
Yep.
Yep.
Are they significantly different? Because we can come back to them.
We can come back, but it's as of the 3rd of September, there's 1,435 applications, 412 approved, to date 473 paid claims, and there's 383 applications currently being processed, and there's 640 applications not approved. Reasons for rejected applications, not meeting criteria, and trying to claim for lost income, which isn't one of the criteria.
So do you think that, what was that last number of the not approved, rejected?
640 applications not approved, and it was for trying to claim for lost income, which is not one of the criteria, and not meeting criteria, other criteria.
What are the criteria they're not meeting, Minister?
I'd have to get
I can give some more
Miss Gibbons
information
could give you
on that.
that
So
detail.
Can I come back to Miss Gibbons?
Come back to Miss Gibbons.
And I'll just put to you, Minister, because we're hearing people are... So actually, I'll move on from that. So of the ones that's been approved, how much of that have received just the 5,000 and nothing beyond that?
To date, 473 paid claims. It says 2.77 million, and businesses make a number of claims per application. And again, Service New South Wales will give you more detail on that.
We can break that down for
down.
this afternoon if you'd like, but there are definitely some in that claims that are over and above the first 5,000 as well.
Okay, so the earlier stats that I understand you've just updated were that only 119 had accessed more than that $5,000. Now we're hearing that it's just proving too hard for people to go to beyond that. And, we've got specific examples. A mechanic up there who runs a Steve, he's one of those people. He said he's just struggled with the amount of paperwork to push through that. Why are people finding it so hard to the point that they're not bothering to chase this money? It must be incredibly hard to give up on $20,000.
It's not No, it's not that hard, but I understand when people are trying to rebuild a business and do all the things that they have to do, doing more paperwork can be a bit painful. I get that. But the reality is from 2022, we've had Auditor General's reports about these programs, and there was a lot of looseness in the programs and a lot, that's the best way I can put it, a lot of looseness, and they did have to be tightened up after that. But in terms of having gone through this with a lot of people from 2022 on, I know that it is a bit faster than it has been. I can take you back to some of the times.
We could
from
do that.
then.
You say it's not that hard, Minister, but a number of people, Renee's
No,
another
I
example,
said I
who's
understand
having to
it can
take-
be
You just said it wasn't that
painful.
hard, Minister. It is proving too hard for people to take time away from their work. Then, this isn't their job. Their job might be running a mechanic. Why are people finding it too hard to even bother to apply for this money?
Look, when people are applying for public money, there has to be criteria, procedures, and some sort of integrity around it, and that's what they go through. Some of them can access business concierges as well, and they do, to help them. And I encourage that, and that's what local members do, encourage them.
Thank you. Ms Higgins.
Thank you, Chair. Here we go again. Minister, can I just ask you about when the media pack announced the Resilient Homes program, and it originally advertised the 4,000 house rises and retrofits. And I said, apparently at the moment, just 41 of those have been completed. I'm just curious, what's your main explanation now as to why they are going so slow?
When it was announced as 2,000 because that's what the two governments did. And to go back to my previous response, we got it from a senior public official that it would be higher than that, okay? But the official announcement was the 2,000. That was the official announcement.
I thought that the media pack actually provided 4,000.
No, I was there on the day.
Yeah.
And it was clearly 2,000. And that was what was announced by Premier at the time, Perrottet, Prime Minister Albanese. There was a whole pile of other people there as well. And that was what they announced. And I wasn't in control of the Northern Rivers Reconstruction Corporation. Might have been better if some of us had been, but at the time, but we weren't in control of it. And they didn't start the program until the next year because there was no program design at all. It was an announcement, here's the money, and it took us from 28th of February and then the second flood, the 30th of March, and it was 28th of October when that was announced.
Okay.
Yeah. But it was, what was prioritised was the buybacks, that was clear.
Yeah.
So they didn't focus on the
buybacks,
others.
Look, I have so many documents, though, that talk about the 6,000, 4,000. It's very difficult to reconcile, but I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
There was obviously some blowout, words spoken, numbers thrown around, and you're saying no genuine commitment to that.
It was, 2,000.
Can I ask you about there was 100 million that was cut from the that was moved from what we understand to be the raises and the retrofits that went to the buybacks. I have letters from Jihad Dib, the Prime Minister responded to the Premier, and basically what Jihad Dib, Minister Dib said in evidence this week was there was just no more funding coming. So we just moved that money. Is that, in retrospect, was that the right thing to do? Were you aware of that? Were you told that 100 million was being moved?
I became aware of it, and look, retrospect, the backward lens is great, but the reality is people wanted buybacks, but my view is we need to do as many house raising and retrofit as we can now, and the buybacks, the offers have ended with the buybacks, And I can't remember the exact number, but it might be about 900, I think. 917 with buybacks, but I think how many accepted? 800 or...
817.
Yeah, 817. And I've said now, because remember, Miss Higginson, we decided that we wanted to be equitable across the region. Lismore could have sucked up every cent. That's the reality. You and I, it's our home.
Yep.
So we could be greedy. We could suck up every cent into Lismore. No one else would have got anything. And we decided that that would not be fair because everyone was smashed across the Northern Rivers. And so with the house raising and the retrofits, some of those will be done in the other areas to make it more equitable. And that's what's being rolled out now.
It's difficult. I have a copy of an email that was sent on the 3rd of July in 2023 from one of the Reconstruction Corporation officials, and she made very clear, she said, I think the optics of just changing the numbers now when the NRRC have been accused of deliberately misleading the community is not sound. There was clearly so much misunderstanding about the 6,000, the 1.5 billion, where those programs, yeah.
There was. It was a cluster.
Can I ask you about the mapping? Honestly, I'm going to get through this, I promise.
Okay.
Just in terms of the mapping, in answers to some questions recently I put to you, you said that the Reconstruction Authority doesn't have data readily available on which homes sit within priority 1, 2, 3 and 4. In an email going back on the 28th of October in 2022, obviously before your time, one of the senior bureaucrats said we won't be releasing zone mapping case by case because the nature of the program could make maps a rod for our backs. Is that still, is that still the policy of the RA, or is there going to be more transparency around, the geography of our community and what is priority and what is not?
With the maps were released. You'll recall, they were released, and our community had some concerns about the maps, particularly the locals. We made that very clear, as did I. It's all in the media.
Well, they were the kind of winners and losers maps,
Yeah, and also we raised questions about, who had input into them. I was told it was local councils, and we caused, and again the elected officials, through the Community Leaders Forum, we caused a review to happen. There were 25 recommendations. That was an independent review, and there were 25 recommendations done on the map. That was made publicly available. It was on the website and that at the time, and we made it public. And the RA then worked through that process of incorporating the 25 recommendations into the maps that had been used. That gave rise to a lot more exceptional circumstances as well. I can't be responsible for the past.
I know,
Yeah,
thank you.
But where we're going, I'll be responsible for.
So can I just move quickly to the river? We know that fish kills are a really serious issue in the Richmond. Are you concerned that some of the CSIRO's proposed hard engineering solutions, and I know they're not positing the solutions, they're generating the methods and the models.
Yeah.
Are you concerned that there isn't a genuine correlation between that work and the river health work?
I'm not concerned because we knew exactly what CSIRO would be doing with the NEMA funded project, and their job was to do the LIDAR and bathymetry, particularly, and they've made that available across various rivers, but it was all about the Richmond River catchment, so they've done that work. And it was a few stages, and then they said they would look at, is there any way they could reduce the flow and impact of the flood? And they're coming up with models to do it. Any model that comes forward, of course, would have to have agreement with the local councils as well and the local communities. So no, I'm not concerned by anything at this stage, and in fact I'm really pleased that we have CSIRO doing that work, and the chief scientist who's run it has been, absolutely consultative with our community at every step of the way. It's been one program that's been clear from the start to where it is now.
And so your assumption is, I know we should assume nothing, but your assumption would be nothing we do should have a negative impact on river health in terms of working towards flood mitigation works.
Look, river health, no, because what we'll look at first is protecting humans' lives and livelihoods. So if there's something we can do to do that, then we have to consider that very seriously, and then we have to look at, are there any other impacts? Can we minimise them or obviate them? So that's the way I'll answer it.
Can I ask you, there has been discussion about a proposal to drain the Tuckian Swamp. Do you know where that proposal came from? Was it the Leaders Forum that discussed that?
No.
Do you know where it came from?
No.
Do you think, have you seen it in any form as a genuine proposal? Is that being considered by anybody at this point in time?
Look, I hear a lot of talk about the Tuckian Swamp, and I've got a proposal from Rouse County Council as well about how to improve the river health and all of that from Rouse County Council.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister. Just to round off my questions about Business Connect, and we ran out of time last time, just to clarify. I was asking you about any modelling that's been undertaken on the impact of Business Connect's closure, small business employment and economic resilience around disaster-affected communities, and you said that that was something that you had considered yourself as Minister in regards to this decision. And then when I asked you on if you could provide that modelling on notice, you said it was more just a decision. So can I just clarify, was there modelling done on that, or was that just something that you had sort of more broadly considered within the decision?
Sure. It was something I'd more broadly considered within the decision.
Thank you. Minister, as the member for Lismore, I know you will recall the many stories and heartbreaking images of animal rescues in the 2022 Lismore floods, and the challenges residents faced in achieving safe rescue with their animals, and then obviously recovering afterwards, reuniting with their animals as well. In your new role as Minister for Recovery, can you talk about any work that you've been doing in relation to recovery plans around animals during disasters such as fires and floods, and how the government's going to provide assistance for communities in these situations?
Look, can I give you assurance that I am so mindful of animals in disaster? And I've sort of lived through where we'll rescue you but not your animals, and people won't go.
Stay.
They stay and put themselves at risk. That happened in my family. So I get it, and I've been driving for years that we need to be very mindful of animals. And when I say animals, our pets, I also talk about stock, and it might seem counterintuitive, but I know how farmers also feel when they're listening, to the cattle bellowing in, with the floodwaters rising or the fires coming and that. And I'll just do everything I can to ensure that animals are part of our recovery. One of the things that I've discussed with Mr. Lanyon is, I said, I'd really like to see, and we're working on it, a comprehensive recovery checklist, so that we all know exactly what to expect in recovery. We know what we want, we know what we need, but so that it's there front and centre. And I saw in 2022, the first evacuation centre I was at Southern Cross University, we had animals everywhere. And, and it was a bit, how would I put it, chaotic. But we had animals everywhere. I can remember the ferrets, the donkeys, I had everything, cats, the whole lot. But in terms of a policy position, in answer to your question, yes, I'll make sure they're front and centre.
Thank you. And it's an interesting one when I look back at the floods and what was happening there. And I remember the Animal Welfare League had made their way up to the Lismore region, and they were finding themselves with lost companion animals, but they weren't able to reunite them with their families because the vet clinics were all underwater, and they therefore couldn't access any microchipping details to be able to scan the animals to reunite them. And I know that had to do with the complications of having mobile veterinary clinics to be able to come in and do that work. I know that's obviously the Minister for Agriculture, but is that something that you will look into as well within the Minister for Recovery, to be able to have these emergency mobile veterinary clinics and to work with the Agriculture Minister to change the legislation so that sort of stuff can be available?
Look, I'll certainly talk with the Minister, and also in terms of the work that the Reconstruction Authority's charged with doing on resilience and preparedness, and that will take time, given it's really operationally just over 2 years old. These are some of the things that will be some of the work going forward. And I know a lot of practices from 2022 have changed where they keep their records and how they keep their records. But yes, I'll definitely have those conversations with the Minister.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And another, we talked a bit about pets, and we've talked a bit about farmed animals, but I guess there's also the concern around wildlife as well. And in a similar way that, as you very clearly articulated, people stay with their animals if they can't live with them. People will also, in emergency situations, put themselves in very dangerous situations to rescue particularly endangered wildlife if they find those animals. Is that something that you'll also look at as the Minister for Recovery, and how we deal with those situations? I know during the major bushfires that became a huge concern for a lot of wildlife organisations, and being able to safely access animals to rescue them.
Look, yes, as Minister and as a local member, I was very active in that area. And at the time, the Minister was Matt Keane. And I had a lot of conversations with Minister Keane, and also lobbied to have some money made available for the wildlife. I also said that people will go into those areas and rescue anyway, even when they're told not to. And I named some of them. I won't name some of them here, but I named some of the people I know who did that and who would do it. And I said they should be given an accreditation so that they can enter, and equally, from a responsibility point of view, they do a little bit of training on how best to be in a fire zone or a flood zone, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I understand that does exist, I think, in Victoria. So I'm glad to hear that you've been advocating for the same thing here in New South Wales.
I have been.
Thank you. Can you talk a bit about some of the work that you're doing to ensure animals are actually factored into those recovery plans that are coming out? I know that was a key recommendation coming out of the bushfire inquiry as well, and I'm just wondering if, now that you've taken on this portfolio, if any work has been underway in regards to that inquiry recommendation?
I've just started, not just started, I've been here 5 months, but I've been going through the recommendations, and I've asked for more detail in a whole lot of areas, so I'm gradually working my way through them. The 2 inquiries, actually.
Yes.
Yeah, so I always say the 2, particularly flood inquiries. Bushfire's virtually done, but I've sort of taking a deeper dive into both of those, and also again the conversations with Mr. Lanyon about having our recovery, what I call our recovery checklist, so that we know exactly what to expect, what to do, how we're going to deal with the animals, etc., etc. Because 2022 it was chaotic, I know. In the mid-north coast and Hunter, I know that the animals were rescued and looked after. One of the things, and again I come back to the farmers and the stock, they lost, and that causes deep distress to them. And to the best of my ability that I was able to do, we helped them clear that, quickly, because it caused too much distress.
Thank you. The government recently announced a $50 million housing support package to assist eligible homeowners, renters and primary producers who are impacted by the severe flooding in the Mid-North Coast and the Hunter. Something that's often raised with my office is these types of grants, animal sanctuaries in those recovery zones often miss out because they're not a for-profit business, and yet obviously they face the same barriers, the same challenges for many other flood-affected businesses involving animals. Do you know if animal sanctuaries in those areas are eligible for that funding from the most recent package that was announced?
The NGOs, that would be.
Small business, they come across as an NGO under the small business. They're
that's what I
eligible if they're
thought.
impacted 25.
Yeah.
Not the housing package,
No,
but
no.
under the small business.
Yeah, that's. I was just clarifying
That's okay.
because I know that NGOs are eligible, and they can be eligible under the small business, so up to the 25,000. Not
Yep.
with the housing, so I'm not sure exactly what you mean about the sanctuary and the housing package.
Yeah, so I don't think they're classified as NGOs specifically. My understanding is that whenever there's been support packages in previous years that they haven't fit those eligibility criteria in some way, they're knocked out of that. Is that something that you're at least willing to
I'll
sort of
take
look
on notice.
into? And
I'll take on notice.
Are
Chair.
you, and if you find that eligibility, that they are sort of knocked out, and I'm happy to sort of get more details
Yeah,
from
I'll
those
need more
sanctuaries and
detail.
provide them to you.
Yeah.
But is that something you're willing to consider in future recovery grants to make sure that that eligibility criteria doesn't actually knock out animal sanctuaries that are running in those spaces?
I'm really happy to look at that.
Great.
Of course.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I won't start further questions with 4 seconds remaining. I'll throw to the opposition.
Thank
4
you.
seconds.
Minister, we've spoken a lot about numbers. This many people have applied, this many people have been rejected. But of course, as you well know, this is very personal. You know, these are actual people and families
Yeah.
that are affected by this. And I'm going to come to one that you may be familiar with, Renee, with the Hot and Tasty Bakery. I'm aware there's been a bit of coverage around this situation. Renee's had to remortgage her house to stay afloat. So he got the first 5,000. But he's also struggling with the next 20,000, having to take time off work and apply. You can imagine the stress that's coming with that. Is your advice to her, as you said earlier, that it's not that hard?
No, and I don't mean it's not that hard. I said it can be painful for people. I get that. So, you know, you can put the words however you want, but I recognise it can be painful for people. They're suffering. They're suffering losses. They're suffering trauma. They're filling in forms. I get it. If it could be made easier, I'll make it as easy as I can. I continue to poke in, dig in, ask questions about it. Really happy to help her directly.
So with that poking and digging, what has been done to make it easier for people like Renee?
Well, I don't know her personal circumstances, but I'm sure Service New South Wales would be able to assist with her directly with the business concierge at least.
What has been done to make the process easier?
The process is, look, the process existed under every government. It's not like it just happened because the flood happened in this time. These processes will continue to exist. Anything we can do to make it less painful, we will do. If we identify the pain points, instead of just saying it's hard, we need a little bit more information about that to try and help. And that's what I do.
You'd also be aware, Minister, a lot of these people in the past have used the Business Connect advisors to support this application process?
Well, generally they'd use the Business Concierge, not the Business Connect. Business Connect wasn't designed to be used in the disasters like this. That wasn't what it was designed about.
So, Minister, if there are things that we can identify that would make this process easier, so there's not 570 at the last count, but there's a lot more now, I think, people being rejected, how do we get that to
Give it to me.
Okay. And we'll do something on that to make it easier?
It's
been 3 months.
I will try, and you know that. You know I will try. So if you get me the information, I do my best. If it can be made easier, sometimes we will have to fill in those forms. We will have to produce some documents. We will. That's just a matter of public expenditure, public monies. But if there's unnecessary regulatory burden, I'll certainly look at it.
Minister, back to Renee. She spent that $5,000 on the first day. I understand in 21 and 22 there was $50,000 attached to the small business grants. Why are people on the Mid-North Coast and Hunter worthy of only half the support that was provided before?
Look, everybody's worthy of every cent that we can actually afford to give. It's not a case of people being unworthy. Everybody's worthy. I come back to the position that before 2019, $158,000 spent in disasters. We're now trending up to over $9 billion. That's a lot of money being spent at state level for any government.
Are you continuing to argue with argue for money? Sorry, are you continuing to argue for money with the Treasurer, as you indicated when you were in Tari last month?
I always argue for money, be assured.
Are we likely to see any more money for these people, or is the book closed on this one?
The book's not closed.
There's still a fair bit of recovery to happen up there, Minister. I would suggest you would agree.
There is.
How come then we've wrapped up the role of the recovery coordinator?
It was time limited. Recovery coordinators come in for a certain amount of time to be on the ground, the eyes and ears, and it was only ever to be 3 months, and I think it might be extended by a couple of weeks. Yeah, there's a report being written by Dave Owens, so it was only ever time limited, as it was in the Northern Rivers when Mr. Lanyon was the recovery coordinator. I think he was about 5 months, and that was a pretty big disaster. And in that one, we weren't even notified that he was going. There was no public notice. We made sure we let people know that the recovery coordinator would be time limited.
So Mr. Owen was only ever there for that was always the plan. He was only there for 3 months.
Yes.
So when we're seeing things, he'll be responsible for this is the press release when he was announced.
Yep.
He'll be responsible for managing the clean-up and repair efforts. That was regardless of how long that clean-up and repair efforts took?
Well, it's not their role to actually clean it up. It's his role to be there to make sure it happens. And I'll go back to 2022. We had stuff everywhere. We didn't have there was no process in place for clean-up. So I can remember people waiting 10 weeks, a long time. That's changed. There have been changes and we have to acknowledge them.
Yes, there's obviously a lot of learnings that come
There's
out of
a lot
every
of
event.
learning.
If there were no changes, we'd be having a very different conversation
That's right.
altogether.
2022, there was no clean-up, no waste, no anything. We even had an agency that wasn't fit for purpose. So not much was happening until we got Mr. Lanyon up there as a recovery coordinator.
So I'll come back to Mr. Lanyon on this later, but again, in this press release, I want to assure the community that the recovery coordinator will be there with them throughout this process. The process is still far from over.
The process of, recovery's long, it's complex. You and I both know that. And we're not going to have the recovery coordinator there forever. They are time limited. They operate in other jurisdictions in Australia, always time limited. And the Reconstruction Authority is the agency to work on the recovery, but working multi-agency and working across the whole of government. One of the things that I've started to drive is this is a whole of government response. It's one particular agency, but it's whole of government, and we're working together quite well in terms of the recovery.
I understand that role's now been taken over by the Executive Director of Regional Delivery. Who is picking up her business as usual work?
I'll let Mr. Lanyon answer that one.
Her role actually covers all that anyway, so she basically coordinates the state in terms of recovery. If I can just clarify and just assist the Minister, the role of recovery coordinator is not gone. Mr. Owens as the recovery coordinator is gone, so the recovery coordinator has specific roles. That now transitions over to an employee of the Reconstruction Authority, which is consistent with how it's normally done. It's also consistent with how Queensland do it, and as you know, they have significant experience. One of the roles of Mr. Owens is to make sure that we have impetus in the initial recovery, deliver a recovery plan, and obviously then the RA take over the role of coordinating recovery committees based on a recovery plan.
But that role, as you said, has transitioned to the, as I understand, the executive director of regional delivery is the person that's picked up that role.
Correct.
Was she doing nothing beforehand, or had some spare time to be able to pick this up?
No,
Like, it's a pretty big role to just put onto someone, and
look,
there's no way that role can be fulfilled to the same level as a full-time person to someone who is an executive director within the department.
She was already working there with the recovery coordinator, so she's familiar with the needs of the community and the program. She's already there. In answer to your question, will she be relieved of some of her duties? Again, I'll leave that for the RA, so I understand your question.
I understand with this, there's also been, and you might have to help me with the names of these, 7 different recovery committees set up in the Mid-North Coast. How was the representation of these committees established?
I'll leave it for Mr. Lanyon.
The recovery committees have a fairly set format. This is something, as we've explained before, that we have had repetitive disaster events for which we formulate them. There are fairly standard representatives who sit on a recovery committee. The actual chair of the recovery committee can invite other people to be on that recovery committee if required, but there's a fairly set format for the people that are on a recovery committee.
And are the bulk of these people local people?
There'll certainly be an engagement from them. There'll be a number of state agencies, there'll be councils, there'll be people representative of the community more broadly, plus also the state need to deliver the services.
And too, there's a feeling that a lot of locals have been cut out of this, including elected officials up there. I have been complimentary, Minister, about the bipartisan approach that we took to this, particularly in the response.
Sure.
Why does it feel we're moving away from that when it comes to the recovery, when local members have been left out of these recovery committees?
Have they started a community leaders forum? Not yet.
Well, there has been ongoing
There's been
community
ongoing community
engagement.
leaders forums where they are involved. I've been in some of them, and it might be worth them having that on an ongoing basis. That's what we did in the Northern Rivers. You did it in the Central West as well.
So if we can just circle back to that
Yeah.
way that approach, as I said,
Yeah.
I was very complimentary of the bipartisan approach to make sure that local members are included
Yeah.
in those recovery
And I
committees.
believe they should be included in every step of the way, because they're the front line, they're on the ground. And I like to make sure that they have all the information they require too, even if they're not happy sometimes with things, as I wasn't. But you still have to be included in part of that whole process.
Did you want to add something there, Mr. Lane?
I was just going to say, Mr. Barrett, if there is a feeling, and I know Mr. Owens has engaged extensively with community leaders right across the region, the local recovery committees obviously work on, I'll say, actions that happen within the local areas to do that there. If there's a feeling within elected officials that they are not being engaged and are aware across the region, but as you can imagine, as it starts to go further into recovery, the needs of the elected officials in terms of the information they want becomes very different. They may want to know specifically about their area as opposed to in toto what's happening across the region, which is normally where it first starts. We're more than happy to work with those elected officials to make sure that they're receiving the information they like.
Minister, we're aware now that there has been changes made to the small business grants, removing the line that prohibited farmers from applying. How did the Minister for Agriculture not know about this and was actually adamant that this wasn't happening?
Look, I read what the Minister said. She wasn't adamant it wasn't happening. She said that that was being done with the RA and with the Minister for Recovery. So that matter came to me via one of the locals when I was in Taree, and via the member as well.
Sorry, in due respect, Minister, that's not what she says. I was in the room. I have the transcript in front of me. Will you remove that clause from the guidelines that allows farmers to access these small business grants? It's not something we're looking at. I then went back to it. Can I just clarify that you're adamant that there'll be no changes to the small business grants? It's not something that I'm looking at.
Yeah, well,
she didn't say anything in there about RA.
Look, she didn't have
I
to look at
understand
it
it's
because
outside
I was
her
looking at
remit.
it. But I was looking at it. So she knew that I was looking at it. I'm looking at it, and we did, and we've changed it.
So she did know it was being looked at?
You'd have to ask
I did, Minister,
her.
and she said she didn't. It wasn't
She
being
said
looked
she
at.
wasn't looking at it, but I was clearly looking at it. So it's done.
So was the Minister for Agriculture
I'm not
aware you were
answering for
looking
the
at it?
Minister for Agriculture. She'll answer for herself.
Had you informed the Minister for Agriculture that you were looking at this?
look, we inform each other of a whole lot of things that, you know, happen. There's lots that happen. We know, they know. Our agencies work together. They were working on it.
It's just
Agencies.
you acknowledged before you were across some of the issues around stock and animal welfare and that sort of stuff, which one would expect from the Recovery Minister. I would also expect that the Agriculture Minister would be aware to significant changes that are going to allow farmers to access this money. But is the ignorance on that sit with her or sit with your agency for not informing her?
There's no ignorance. We were doing it, and that's it. We were doing it. We've done it. Job done. And as the local person who raised it with me when I was there, he said in the radio, that's how it should work. He said, I took it to the local member, and that was Tanya, and then Tanya took it to me. I was there, and we worked on it, and we got it done. That's it.
Absolutely. When was
Job
that change?
done.
When was that change made, Minister?
It's live today, isn't it?
Correct.
Live now.
Okay, so farmers now can apply for the small business grant?
Yep, it's live. Okay.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, I just want to return in terms of the staffing of the business concierge. I've got some information that as of March through contact lists, there were 44 business concierge listed. I think you were citing 75 now. Has there been an increase since March, or?
So we have...
I'll let Miss Gibbons answer,
Yeah,
but
that's
there's
fine.
definitely 75. I'm assured of that.
So there is a split between metro and regional. So it's about, and there's a total of 75. So maybe you got the metro list or the...
No, well, I've got to say the list that I have in terms of the individuals is across every LGA with several business concierge assigned, and of course it's got names and contact details, so I might look at redacting that and tabling it after the break potentially, so we can ask further questions on it, but it is across every LGA in New South Wales, so I would just be interested in terms of are all business concierge assigned to an LGA, or?
Yes, they are. There are 75 roles available across the state, and they are all allocated to LGAs.
Okay. I might, after the break, seek to redact those details so that I can table that and ask further questions with respect to that. But it does seem to be some distinction. But still, with that being said, there is a significant gap between those 75 and then what you're receiving in terms of advice with Business Connect advisors across New South Wales as well. I'd like to also turn to a meeting, Minister, that you had with Mr. Martin Rogers and potentially some other service providers or Business Connect service providers, and when you met with them, they have relayed to me that you asked them to submit a formal request to meet with you, the Treasurer, and the Premier around that program, which they undertook and wrote a letter to the Premier on the 8th of August. They then followed that up with your office on the 12th and the 27th of August. As to that, will you still seek to secure a meeting for them with the Premier and the Treasurer to discuss Business Connect?
Not at this stage, because Business Connect is ending.
So why did you advise them then on the 8th of August to?
Well, it was a
to write that letter?
conversation. They wanted to meet with them, obviously. Everybody wants to meet with the Premier and the Treasurer. And I said I was happy to facilitate putting that forward, but Business Connect is finishing.
Okay, so your answer to the Business Connect advisors across
no.
the state is no. Okay, no meeting with, will you further meet with them?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so you will further meet with them, but when it comes to the Premier and Treasurer, they don't want to hear from them.
I'm not answering for the Premier and Treasurer. I'm just saying at this stage there's no point in pursuing having those meetings. They can meet with me. I'll continue to meet with them and talk with them.
You'll continue to meet with them, but what will be the outcome you will facilitate, or what will you do for them?
I will meet with them, I'll listen to them, I'll do what I always do, and as I did when Martin was with the Taxi Council.
But it seems like their calls are falling on deaf ears.
Business Connect is finishing. We can, you can continue to sort of keep flogging this, but it's finishing. It's winding up.
Well, I will continue to keep flogging it because it's something that's actually servicing businesses across New South Wales and is a good program. Do you dispute that it's a good program, Minister?
No, I said that before. I didn't dispute it was a good program, but it's one of those programs when the government's faced with, the largest debt they ever inherited in New South Wales. They're faced with frontline services, funding all of them. Some of the free programs go, and particularly when we have Service New South Wales with the business concierge, with the business bureau, with the charter, they'll still be able to access services. And a lot of those businesses, as I said, they access services beyond Business Connect. They access support, advice. They use other advisory roles. I've discussed that with some of them.
Of course they use other advisory roles. We wouldn't expect Business Connect to be doing everything for business across New South Wales.
That's right.
It is a very valuable program. It's one that you yourself have said is a good program. It's one that an Accenture report said provided a cost-benefit ratio of 1.5 to 1, and also outlined that if that were to be extrapolated over 3 years, that BCR would end up being 3. So why are you axing a program which is so successful and costs so very little, $10 million a year?
The government inherited a huge debt. The government inherited a lot of programs that were not funded, that weren't secured. This was one of them. And the government looks at everything they have to provide across the community with police, with health, with housing. Nothing had been done on housing. Where I lived, nothing north of Port Macquarie from 2011. So the government has a lot of priorities and you have to make budget decisions. This was one of those decisions that was made, that businesses would continue to flourish, businesses will continue to grow, businesses will continue to be. That will happen.
So, Minister, the government's got a lot of priorities, but small business isn't one of them.
Small business is a big one. That's why they've got the
So why are you
charter, the
axing Business
business
Connect?
concierge. That's why they've worked
The most
with
effective
procurement.
program.
That's why they're doing what they're doing with procurement, to make sure that more small businesses get access. More small businesses are getting access to government contracts. There'll be a Jobs First Commissioner. So there's more small businesses, actually increased the amount of spend with export. So there's a lot happening for small business. This was one part. This was one part of what's being done for small business, not the only part. And that will continue. There's a commitment.
But when it comes to procurement, Minister, the tailored business advisory services of Business Connect were helping small businesses across New South Wales as
Service New
featured
South
in your
Wales
charter.
is helping them with procurement as well. So that's happening
By
now.
advising them to a webinar.
Just 4 minutes now.
Okay.
You may continue.
Yeah. Have we got all of it?
Yeah.
Minister, can I just come back to the numbers, please?
Of
The Mid-North Coast,
Mid-North Coast.
Hunter Valley numbers. How many applications have you received for the small business grants?
1,435.
And of them, how many have been successful for the 5,000, and then how much have got more than the 5,000?
That's what we agreed we'd take on notice,
Okay.
because that's what Mr. Wells said
We can cover that now.
They'll
if you'd
come
like.
back
You'll be able to
later.
get that when we come back
Yeah.
after Smoko, is that all right?
Yep.
Or Smoko or
sorry.
later this afternoon.
Morning.
We've got it now, Mr. Barrett, if you'd like.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
that'd be
you've got
great.
it.
Yeah. So businesses that have been successful in the $20,000 on top of the $5,000 grant are 132. We've paid $893,000 as part of that 132, and there's another 860,000 in progress. So of the in progress amounts also, there's a number of businesses that are part of that next phase as well.
Sorry, can I just come a bit closer to the...
Yeah, sorry. So 132 have been successful.
They've got more than 5,000, yep.
That's right, or in the second round, in the second tier of that grant. That's
Yep.
right. The total's about $893,000.
Okay. So how many have got just the 5,000?
That would be 482. Yep.
And how many have been rejected?
The total decline at the moment is 640. And to go through some of the reasons that we talked about before, the majority of the reasons are either that we don't have enough evidence, so we're seeking just evidence, and again, as the Minister talked through, our business concierges can assist in working with businesses to find that evidence. We'll make sure we get in contact. We're already in contact with the people you mentioned, but we'll make sure we get in contact with Renee and others that you mentioned today. Some of it might be that they're not actually small businesses under the definition. Some have withdrawn their applications through the process. Some are eligible for other grants, so they might be a primary producer and that's their primary income. So there's a range of reasons, but and also, Mr. Barrett, happy to provide those reasons on notice if that's helpful too.
So then, thank you. You just gave me those four numbers, there, three numbers there, 482, 132, 640, which I haven't added up. Out of 1,400 minus them would be the number that are just still sitting there waiting to be processed.
Yeah, look, there's no backlog, we would say, at the moment. So there's about 50 active cases we're working with customers on, but the remainder that are sitting there, we're in contact with, but we're waiting to receive evidence or other information from those businesses. There's definitely no backlog that exists with these. We're actively working on anything we're in contact with customers with.
Okay, and of the successful ones, the $5,000, is that money all gone out the door?
Yeah, that's paid. That's right.
That's paid?
$2.8 million is paid.
Okay. Okay. Now back to the rejected ones. When they don't have enough evidence, are they just rejected, or are we working with them to?
No, we always first of all we'll call them and explain what's missing and why it's been rejected at this point. We'll make it clear what businesses need to do to satisfy the eligibility criteria. We'll follow up with them at least for the next month on what's missing. So we really do try to make it as easy as possible, and that's both on the phone, if we're in contact with them on the phone, and as we talked about before, I think there are still 5 business concierges in that region that are working with the businesses on these grants.
Thank you. Government questions?
Thanks, Chair. The government don't have any questions.
In that case, we will break for morning tea and we'll be back at 11:15 a.m.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Welcome back to budget estimates. I will throw straight to the opposition.
Thank you. Minister, I'm going to come back to those numbers, and you'd think I'd be clearer now, but I'm actually more confused about the numbers. We've now had 3 different sets of numbers given this morning. Different set from you, different from Mr Wells, and different that I read in the tally that I presume came from your office yesterday afternoon. So, can you tell me again, Minister, please, how many successful applicants there have been for the small business grant?
There's been 412 approved out of 1,435 applications.
Okay, so Mr Wells, I'm sure, told us 482 had been paid. Or even yourself, Minister, earlier you said 473 had been paid. So how have 412 been approved and 473 paid?
Good question for Mr Wells.
And can you, I guess, well, you're not across that, Minister, of...
No, but I understand it, but he'll give the detail of it.
Mr. Finance, sorry, I was also quoting off live statistics as of this morning, so that'll be the discrepancy. The other discrepancy will be some applications are paid first of all for the $5,000 and then for the $20,000, so there'll be more payments as well.
So where are we at then? Sorry, so 482 have been approved?
Yep, and paid.
Paid.
And paid.
That's right.
So forget 412?
As of this morning.
And 473 is wrong as well?
My numbers were the 3rd of September, Mr Barrett.
482 approved and they have $5,000 each in their bank account, Minister.
Sorry, just say it again.
There's been 482 people that have been approved and they now have been paid $5,000 each. At least $5,000.
At least 5,000, yes.
Okay.
That's why I was hesitating.
Yes.
At
Now,
least
132 of those people have received above the $5,000.
Correct.
640 people have had their applications rejected.
Yes.
Mr Wells mentioned 50 open cases, but there's still 313 is the gap there that I can work out to get us up to 1,435. Minister, where are we up to with the processing of those 313 applications?
I'll leave that for Mr Wells.
Thanks, Mr Barrett, and sorry for any confusion we've created, but they will be where we are waiting for additional evidence, I would say. So we're in contact with those businesses, we're waiting for additional information.
When you say in contact with them, we saw, and we prosecuted with the Agriculture Minister, a generic email that went out to all applicants. Is there more than a generic? There is a personalised contact with each one of those 313 people?
Absolutely, yeah. We don't just send an email declining, we make contact with each of those businesses. And as we've talked about before, business concierges will follow up personally with each of those businesses as well.
Okay.
And Mr Barrett, can I just add from my experience, and it can be corrected, but that there's more than one attempt to contact people, because sometimes you ring and they're not there, and my experience is that they ring a few times actually, and it might be 3.
Yeah,
I think
at least
3 times to make sure that they contact people, because often people will say, oh, we've rung and left a message and that's it. So
there's a gap there that you gave, even between your numbers, which you said, Minister, was from the 3rd of September. How are they even different again from the teller who I understand got the numbers from your office yesterday? Were different numbers given to the Telegraph than you had on hand?
The ones
I think there's 2 categories, if you like.
Yeah.
There's applications received, and an application may include 2 claims or multiple claims, as many claims as you like, up to $25,000. So the number of applications is 1,444, and the number of paid claims is that 482.
So that's a number that's a different number again, 1,444.
I'm looking at the live dashboard right in front of me.
So of those, you just said then that someone can make multiple claims.
They
up to
can.
that
So
20,000.
the number of applications won't relate to the number of payments that go out. because people can do the first tier up to 5,000 and then come back and do multiple tiers up to 25. So as an individual business, I may have 2 or 3 claims through this process and 2 or 3 claim applications, but I put in one application at the start to kick off the process.
So there was a number of 132 you gave me that people had received more than $5,000.
Yep.
Could that be the same person getting a number of different claims?
The
paid out?
tier 1 is one person
For
for
5,000?
5,000.
Yep.
Tier 2 can be multiple dips in that pool up to 25,000.
So how many people have received more than $5,000?
Let us try and get that for you.
Because, as you said, a number of them could be the same person
Yep. Could be.
applying a couple of different times. What's the confusion? There's lots of different confusion here. So I think, Ms. Gibbons, you're looking at live numbers. Minister, you're going
Just
off
trying to be
numbers from the
helpful.
3rd of September.
Yes.
The telly's going off a different set of numbers.
Well,
And
these
Mr. Wells, you had
applications are
different numbers
live.
this
So
morning as well.
everything that Ms Gibbons and I are talking to are live statistics, and I'm sorry again for the confusion if we've created there, but we're going off the live stats as of this morning. The Minister's quoting from the 3rd of September, I think, so
Yes.
apologies again.
So either way you look at this, and I haven't done the maths again, sorry, this is going back to earlier, but
We need our calculators.
it seems as only about 30% of applicants have received the money. So that means 7 out of 10 people that have gone through this flood clearly had damage done, and it doesn't take much to see they've had more than $25,000 worth of damage done, Minister. 7 out of 10 people have still not received any money from you. So is that where you want this to be?
I want everybody to get money that they're entitled to as quick as possible. And, you know, I've said it and I'll say it again, that's the reality. And I ask to be updated on figures, how people are going, but the numbers in the business impact surveys that were done, and I think the acting Small Business Commissioner has some figures on that, that there were a lot of, it wasn't a large amount of small businesses, but I just want to say 2 things as well. The average damage was $32,000 as self-reported from small businesses. There was over 1,100 responses, and the average was 32,000. This is small business, the small business survey.
Okay, I don't understand. Can I just talk on that 32
Yeah, come
before
back
we go
to
on
that.
something else?
Yeah.
So when you say this average claim, so people have to put in a claim, or was a survey done to show how much damage?
Well, people were able to self-report. Yes, we were trying to get a handle
So
on.
they only needed to self-report up to $25,000.
No, this was separate. It was separate from Service New South Wales, and it was a small business survey, and it was saying, please let us know how much damage you think you've sustained, and it was self-reporting. And it was 1,100 responses, which was a good response, and average was 32,000, actually 32 and 39 cents, but 32,000 was the average damage that was self-reported.
Are these surveys still underway?
Acting, I'll go over to Miss Ellis, the Acting Small Business Commissioner.
Thank you. No, it was a survey that was conducted in the immediate aftermath of the event in order to understand in more detail the impact self-reported on businesses in the impacted areas.
When you say immediate aftermath, what, do they have 2 months to do this or 3 months?
I can get you the exact date, but it was much closer to the event than that.
So as these people are probably living in someone else's homes, trying to work out what's going on with their future, and then we shut that for what? Why did it only go for that short period? Was that, why wasn't it extended for longer, the business surveys?
I think what the Commission was asked to do was to assist other agencies by undertaking that initial survey in order to inform the policy response on financial support available.
Minister, you're relying on this survey in your answers to justify the money and that sort of stuff.
No, I'm not. I was just providing it as information for you because, sorry to interrupt, but I wasn't doing it for anything like that at all. It was just that I'm interested, we're interested, and we want to find out from people because we do the PINDA surveys, remember? They happen for the farmers, primary producers, and I wanted to make sure that there was some reach out to the small business sector. And, you know, they can, and we've interacted with them since, and so as Acting Small Business Commissioner and with the local members, so they can update us as things come to hand. But I just wanted to say, provide it as information.
Yeah, but my point is, Minister, you are providing this information, and important information, yet you don't seem to be across when it was done, how it was done, for how long.
It was a survey that went out early, and I don't have to have every minute detail, Mr. Barrett. I just have to know the general policy and practice approach that we're making on that to try and reach out, because people say, well, who are you talking to? What are you trying to find out? So that's what we're doing, engaging.
I do have that date.
I just saw a note pass out. Before I move on, did you want to just add something to that, Ms. Ellis?
Yes, just to say the online survey was conducted between the 28th of May and the 12th of June 2025.
2 weeks?
Thereabouts.
Do we think that's long enough? Sorry. Do we think that's long enough, Minister, for these people to take stock of what had just happened in their, this upheaval that had just happened in their life and adequately report to government to give you figures that you can...
Look, it's indicative, and that's what it was done. It was an indicative sort of gauge on what's happening with small business to inform us, and it was reaching out to the small business sector, and there's been more reach out since as well. There's been meetings, Acting Small Business Commissioner has been in various places, met with business communities, so that will continue to happen, and through local members.
In that survey or any other stats that you've got, have we got any idea how many people in applying for this money access the support provided by Business Connect?
Business Connect is not designed for the disaster
it was
recovery.
Used for that,
but
it was relied upon for that.
Well, you can say that, but it's not designed for that. And it's really the business concierge and Service New South Wales on the ground in the recovery centres and ringing them that deals with all of the recovery, the disaster.
Was it that survey that you used to gauge how much money would be provided for this, the 5,025, as opposed to the 50 that was provided after the Lismore floods?
Look, the 50, it was just for us to reach out to the business community and say, tell us what's going on here. And that was an indicative self-reporting from them at that point in time.
So was the $25,000 an amount that you thought would cover the expenses, or it was, we have this pool of money, we need to divide it this way, that's going to equal $25,000?
It was really saying, here's some money available for you, here's $25,000, and we'll look at other considerations, which I've done.
Why 25?
It seemed an indicative amount to help people get going.
Do you still think that's enough of an amount?
Look, from a business perspective, everybody wants 50,000. I get that. And I know you said 50,000, it was 2022, there was 50,000 made available. I understand people want as much as they can get. I get it.
I'll hand over to...
And it's not a yes, it's not a yes or no.
We can certainly come back to that one.
We'll come back to it, definitely.
Thank you, Minister. Minister, with the establishment of the Reconstruction Authority in New South Wales, one of the aims of the Reconstruction Authority was to quickly and decisively prevent and deal with disasters without getting caught up in unnecessary red tape. Would you agree?
The objects of the Act were to mitigate and adapt. It was to prepare, and it was also the recovery and the rebuild. They were the objects of the Act, and I was very involved in those discussions around the objects of the Act.
Thank you, Minister. Minister, for the first time ever on the 21st of May in this year, you made a reconstruction area declaration for Wombrel and the entrance. In doing so, you not only declared a disaster area, but recognised threats to public safety. Since then, there have been 3 major storm events and continual erosion. Central Coast Council's own report states that 72 houses are at risk at Wombrel, along with essential infrastructure such as sewerage and water, and a risk of erosion breaking through the Terrigal Lagoon. Do you agree that now you have made your declaration at Wombrel that you have a statutory duty to protect the safety and welfare of the public and deal with the falling dunes at Wombrel Beach?
I'll walk you through the exercise of that power. Central Coast Council came and met with us at Parliament, and it was agreed that we could make it a reconstruction area, and it was the 2 parishes that covered both Entrance North
entrance, yeah.
and Wombrel. And Council decided that, and we said, come back with a report or a scope of works on what you can do as interim measures to make safe. And they worked in various departments, agencies worked with them, the RA, but other departments who know about that work. Council came back within about 5 weeks with the scope of works, primarily done with Manly Hydraulics, and that went to the CEO, who has to be satisfied certain things. He advised me that I could then make the second order, and the order was for the works to happen, and it was sand nourishment and revetment. And Council decided that Entrance North was the one they should do first. It was more at risk. So that was a decision of Central Coast Council, not a decision of us.
So when will action take place at Wombrel then?
That's up to Central Coast Council. They said that would come next, and I haven't received anything from them at this stage.
Okay, so Minister, what's the threshold for when you'll step in at Wombrel?
I don't step in, they step up, and I'm waiting for them to step up. I said, here's this power, it can be exercised with sort of due diligence and various criteria, and the onus is on Central Coast Council to come forward with it. So
if Central Coast Council were to fail to step up, as you say, what course of action is open to you at that point?
Well, it's not within my power to go and build through the RA a revetment wall or anything like that.
Okay, so it all rests on Central Coast Council then?
Central Coast Council have to come back, and I'm waiting for them, and they said they would.
Okay. Now...
And I just want to say, though, it's a good exercise of power to help councils and help households as well.
Okay. But with respect to that as well, if council doesn't step up on those properties, or we know that there's alternative solutions that are on the table in terms of the individual seawalls that development applications have already gone in as well, what is the position then of the Reconstruction Authority?
Well, the position is if council step up, I can look at it, get a scope of works like we did for Entrance North, and then make a determination.
Sure. Minister, that's sitting at about 30% at the moment of approved thing. Where's that going to sit in another 3 months' time?
The small business grants?
Small business grants.
Yeah, I figured it was small business grants.
Just coming straight
That's all right. That's all right.
Where do you want the small business grants approval rates to be
in
sitting
3 months?
In another 3 months.
Oh, I'd like it to be 100%.
So then when the people that have their information, they need more information, how long do they have to provide that information?
Look, Service New South Wales don't hound them to provide it, but they do. It's in the interest of the person to provide it so that they can get access to money in a more timely way.
So is there a time? The reason I'm asking these questions, I have heard horrific stories about people that have had 4 days to come back with that information, or your case is closed. Does that sound like something that you would be happy if that was happening?
No. I've seen that happen way back, and my understanding is that doesn't happen now. Mr. Wells.
Yeah, Mr. What we generally do is for at least a month we follow up, as we've talked about before, at least 3 times. We don't close those grants at that point. Obviously the grant's open until I think the middle of December at this point, so we won't close any of those applications until the grant closes itself. But we will follow up at least 3 times in the first month of a decline, but customers are always welcome to call us back and we'll check that as well.
Okay. What proactive media has been done about Dave Owen moving on?
I did some media.
Proactive stuff? Like, have you put out a release?
No, I did
you
radio
responded to-
because I do a lot of radio, regions. And as you know, looking after regions, we do a lot of media. And I covered it there.
In response to questions, or have you proactively gone out to inform the community that Dave Owens, because that role is moving on?
Yeah, he'd informed the community that he was moving on, and he'd done that from day one. So he was in the community, he was very active with people, he made that clear to people.
What about proactive media on the change to the small business grants that removed that exclusion of farmers?
There's been a media release. I've been on radio, and there was something else, I can't remember what it is, but there has been.
Did you share that with the Minister for Agriculture?
It was shared with everybody. We share government media, Mr. Barrett.
Well, I do think it's astounding that on Monday, the Minister for Agriculture was not only unaware of this change, but adamant that it wasn't happening.
Barrett,
and it just reeks of lack of communication between the Recovery Minister and the Agriculture Minister.
The Minister for Agriculture, she knew that I was handling it. I know we don't need to re-prosecute everything, okay?
It's definitely not what she said on Monday. It was clear she did not think that anyone was handling it, and there was going to be no change in that matter. So it was just astounding, and I didn't intend to come back to this, but it was
she, of course, had trust in me to handle it well.
Is that what she said on Monday?
It's certainly not what she said.
Minister, just...
Mr. Barrett, and it was about small business, okay? And it was done with small business.
For farmers, and as I'll come back to earlier,
For someone who couldn't fulfil the criteria within... It removed the farm enterprise, okay, out of, the way I see it, it was probably there to stop double dipping, but it had an unintended consequence. It's fixed.
And the reason that it came to our attention was because people were applying through the RAA for the primary producers grants and being told to go to Service New South Wales for the small business grants. You would be across this process where they found out that it was actually excluded farmers.
Yeah.
But surely, as you indicated before, you were across the impacts of recovery on primary producers. The fact that the Agriculture Minister wasn't aware of this impact on her key stakeholders, I just think was astounding and a little bit scary for people who are worried that government isn't talking to each other properly on what's going on.
The government talks to each other, and look, the Minister for Agriculture is well aware of what's happening with primary producers and farms, as am I. And I'm the Minister for Recovery. I go out, I walk in these places, I meet people, I talk to people, I ring them. It's my job.
Be good if she would too.
Minister, turning back to small business,
yes,
and recovery, do you agree that strong economic growth, particularly in the small business sector, is one of the most important measures of our state's success?
There's quite a few measures, but strong economic growth, of course.
And Minister, when you look at that, New South Wales, of course, was ranked in the most recent CommBank State of the States report at what position?
What report?
The CommBank State of the States economic report.
Well, I haven't read the CommBank State. I haven't read it.
Well, for your information, we
Tell
were
me.
ranked last, unfortunately, Minister. So, Minister, given that New South Wales is now ranked last, when it had consistently for many years been ranked as one of the top states, with ranked first, in fact, for 14 consecutive quarters and described as the nation's premier economy, do you accept that this dramatic decline represents a failure of the Minns Labor government?
That's ridiculous. The small business is, it's 97% of our economy, as you know, And there's more small businesses are increasing in New South Wales, not decreasing. And as you know, again, I come back to with the interest rates change and a whole lot of other things that have happened, there's been a turnaround with small business. So no, I just reject what you say.
So these are factors, of course, when you talk about interest rates and the like, that affect other states as well. So
Yeah.
why is it affecting New South Wales more? Why are we now back of the pack?
Look, can I say with respect, it's a silly question.
Well, Minister, I don't think it is
I
a
don't
silly
know how
question,
else
but
to-
you
I
can,
don't know how else
you
to
can make
put
that
it.
proposition, but I don't believe it is. But let's turn to some more details. So New South Wales recorded 7,643 business insolvencies in the 25 financial year. That was the highest in the country, and it was up 26.2% from financial year 2024. Again, why are business insolvencies increasing so dramatically in New South Wales?
Okay. Firstly, that figure's not a true measure. Remember, I referred earlier to Series 1 and Series 2, so that the figure for the insolvencies was 5,000, just over 5,308, because when a business goes into insolvency, there's various stages of insolvency that are double counted, so there's Series 1 and Series 2. So that's not the correct measure. It's from ASIC and the Reserve Bank, it's over 5,000. Also, even with the recent, so that's the first thing. The second thing is, even with the recent increase, the number of insolvencies remains slightly below pre-pandemic trends. And historically, only about 0.1% of firms entered insolvency each quarter, while many more ceased trading without formal insolvency proceedings. But have a look at the Series 1, Series 2, how they measure insolvencies, because I saw that figure too, the one you're talking about, and that was where they had used the Series 2, where they actually do double, triple, quadruple counting for businesses going into insolvency.
So that figure, that 7643, is a figure from ASIC.
No.
It is a figure from ASIC, yes.
Because it's that Series 2 counting, where they do the Series 2 counting. And
We may return to the Series 1 and Series 2 and look at some of that impact as well.
yeah, don't worry, I did a deep dive.
And maybe look at an assessment as well of
think
how New South Wales compares to other states. But with that alone, and
I think we're the premier state no matter what.
Okay, well that's very good, but it's not great that we're the premier state when it comes to insolvencies. But Minister, what's the government's target to reduce both the number and also the year-on-year percentage growth of business insolvencies in New South Wales?
Look, it's to provide as much support as we can, enabling infrastructure, more housing, it's the procurement, it's with the export, with the trade, it's the helping. And one terrific thing Service New South Wales do is digital help, because you know how many small businesses get locked out of things and they don't know how to get back in? Service New South Wales do provide a service helping them. So it's just providing all of those things. And can I just say, when I'm in the regions, one of the issues that comes up with me is people think that it might always be certain things with small business, but it comes up around childcare, it comes up around all sorts of issues. Also workers' compensation. We haven't mentioned it yet, but workers' compensation is a big issue for small business. They all raise it with me. As a local member, I get that. And, you know, I've had sort of done advocacy with people, but workers' compensation, if the changes the government's trying to put through could get through, that would really help small business a lot. That's one of the best things we can all do in both houses, is support them.
We'll come back to workers' compensation, Minister.
Good.
Minister,
I'm ready.
What's the monthly reduction path for insolvency numbers? Do you have a target at all?
No, I don't have a target.
Okay, why not?
Because I don't have to have a target for insolvencies.
You don't think that's something that you should be looking at as small business minister?
I have to have a target. No, I don't. I have to have a target of supporting small businesses in the best way I can with some of the initiatives that I talked about.
So,
and
Minister,
also, like with procurement, for instance, that's a good thing we're doing with procurement.
So, Minister, to that point, what are some of the specific programs that the government's introduced since you were elected to measurably reduce small business failures?
The government doesn't sit and say, I'm going to have this program on XYZ, but what they say is, I'm going to do everything I can to support small business flourish, create an enabling environment, and that's the best thing that they can do for small business. One of the issues we're looking at is, we all talk about red tape, okay? And I said, I'm prepared to do a deeper dive inquiry into red tape, but not what I call a BS red tape inquiry. I've seen many in my day, in different places, and I'm working with Business New South Wales, but also with the Acting Small Business Commissioner, looking at what we can do. And I said, a lot of people say red tape, but they don't say exactly what they mean. And for me, it's about regulatory compliance, issues like that, and we're looking at how we can do that better. That's the sort of red tape inquiry I want to do, just try and get out of the road a little bit. And I haven't seen that done for a long time in New South Wales.
So, Minister, when you talk about a red tape inquiry or the like, who have you commissioned to undertake that work?
I haven't commissioned anyone yet because I said we often launch, I've seen people launch off on a red tape inquiry. And they go, okay, we'll have a grand inquiry, red tape. I saw the Federal Parliament give over 1 day to get rid of red tape. I think they created more. So I've seen it all, and I'm saying I want to make sure that when we do it, we're looking at real things that we can change for people. I'll just give one example. It goes back to rural. In my area, cane growers, if they want to clear their drains, for instance, they had to get 7 different permissions to clear the cane drains. Well, I've actually done some work on that, and we got some money, we got it through recovery, and we've done some good work to get not only the drains cleared, but also to actually not have to go through that process of the 7 different permissions all the time. So when I talk about red tape, I want to look at real things that we can do.
Minister, you mentioned procurement in there and some of the good stuff that's happening there. How good was the procurement decision that led to the removal of Norco milk from Northern Rivers hospitals?
Well, I think you know my view on that, Mr. Barrett.
Would you care to share that with the committee? Because we're not here just for me, we're here for the
It's on the
people of New
public
South
record.
Wales.
Of course I opposed it. And but the change that we've got now with the $7.5 million and the local content and things like that coming, I would hope that would stop decisions like that being made at that level.
Is there still efforts to reverse that decision from government?
Not reverse it, because contracts have been let, but we could, it will favour local people. Look, like going back to even before that, and that was in this government with Norco, but going back before that, there were decisions made in the former government in my area where local people lost their contracts in just the same way. And I can remember one of my local members, one of your colleagues, approaching the then minister who told him to be off.
Yeah, Minister, we're talking about this.
Yeah, no,
this
I'm
government.
talking about both. If you want to talk about it, I'll go back in history.
So who has benefited from this procurement decision?
Well, so the threshold for quotes have been raised from, it was 150 to memory to 250,000 for small business goods and services. And remember, a lot of small businesses couldn't put in for anything or tender because they were told they had to show that they had insurance at the time for what they were tendering for. They now have to only demonstrate they've got insurance when the contract is awarded. So two significant changes, that helps. Around 51.
So it helps who, sorry, Minister?
Small business. It's for
As
small
in like
business.
the Norco?
It'll help.
Well, the question was specifically
Norco's,
about the Norco
Norco's
decision.
not quite a small business, remember? They have more than 20 employees last time I looked.
Yet they couldn't
They're
be
not a
seen
small
as a
business.
provider for.
They're not a small business, Mr. Barrett, and you know that. They're a big business with great export, and they're doing well. And we pumped a lot of money into them, you'll recall.
Sorry, Minister, my question was who benefited from the decision to remove Norco out of Northern Rivers hospitals?
I don't know who got the contract, but look, more on this. 51% of goods and services contracts between 150 and 200 have been awarded to small businesses. And the New South Wales government recently announced small and medium business received over $10 billion through contracting with the government. That's up from $8.7 billion 21-22 to over $10 billion now. And like all of this helps, and when you ask me what's being done to help small business, this is certainly helping small business. And there's key resources, also just a few other things. Through the business concierge, they can provide guidance on procurement, including referral to key tools, training and resources. Also, they can undertake an assessment of their tender readiness, which is really helpful because that's often prevented small business from going for those tenders.
Minister, it's been 2.5, nearly 3 years actually, since the floods in Cabonne, Forbes, Lachlan and Parkes. Applications for the Resilient Homes program there opened in October last year. How many applications have been received in each of each of those streams under Resilient Homes?
I'll just get that for you. Hold on. Central West. You got it? Thank you. I've got, as of 18th of August, so I don't have it live, 252 applications have been received across Cabonne, in total, 112 Cabonne, Forbes 88, Parkes 32. I can send this to you, Mr. Barrett.
And sorry, that's for the whole package?
Yeah, Parkes 32, Lachlan 20, 194 home assessments undertaken, 174 home assessment reports have been issued to the homeowners.
Okay.
Do you want more?
No, that'll do for now. I just wonder, Minister, obviously, and this is an issue I've raised before,
Yes.
on a number of, formally and informally, but centre around the fact that there's no land available in these communities for the buybacks, and this is of course forcing people of these communities to move away from their homes. I just wonder what we're doing, or what you're doing, Minister, about opening up more land so these flood-affected residents can stay in their home communities.
It's particularly an issue in Eugowra, as we both know. I spoke to the Mayor, Kevin, a couple of weeks ago, and I said, hang in, keep the faith. We're working on it. I know they've submitted an application to a particular government program for about 1.1 million for a certain land, and we're just awaiting that. So that's Plan A, and I've been discussing with Mr. Lanyon Plan B.
So the longer we wait, obviously, the less chance there is that these people are going to stay in their communities.
They
How close are we
haven't.
getting?
I'm advised they haven't gone as yet, and you know because you spend time there. So it won't be too long. I can't give you an exact date, but it won't be too much longer.
End of the year?
No, won't be a year.
within this year?
Oh, within this year, definitely.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, definitely within this year.
So there'll be a solution to this within this year.
We've got Plan A and Plan B. Okay.
And one of them will come into fruition by the end
One
of
of them
this
will
year.
come into fruition. All right.
In where we do have buybacks, and I presume this is the case throughout these affected
Yeah.
areas, we're obviously removing infrastructure and other structures and other, gardens and those things out of the community. What support work is being done to support others who are now facing an increased flooding risk because of the change of, I guess, the streetscape or the townscape?
Look, yeah, I've had this question raised, obviously, where I live as well, and local councils, as you know, do the flood management plans. They update them regularly. They've been doing that for a long time. Councils are involved in that, and with the disaster adaptation plans, some of that will come into play in that as well.
So there's nothing on the table as yet?
Nothing in particular on the table while we work through those programs, but I know that that's an issue that some people do raise, and some councils are doing some work on it themselves, like revising.
When this land is bought back, who now owns that block?
The government.
RA?
RA, the government. RA.
So who is responsible for the maintenance of that block? The mowing, the
RA.
keeping the weeds out of it?
RA.
Do they have a team of people to slash the
They
ground?
either have a team or they hire people to do it, yes.
So when someone drops an old fridge on one of these blocks, RA, the call then goes to RA to come and pick this, whatever it is, up and take it to the tip?
Yes.
And they will do that themselves, or they will contract that to?
I'll let Mr. Lanyon give some more detail.
Mr. Barrett, we contract to Public Works to actually assist us with that. We also work with councils. Future use is one of the challenges for the land that is bought back. Whilst we're the owners at the moment, very much looking to work with councils about what future use looks like, both in the Northern Rivers and with the Central West, because we understand it's a really important part for community and council. And it is one of the more challenging parts, because where we have buybacks, as you know, it's a voluntary program. So it's not a mandatory that every house in a particular street will be bought back, because some owners won't want to go through a buyback. So the future use is one of the dedicated focuses we have at the moment to work with councils and communities.
Will that come with biosecurity plans, Minister?
The biosecurity plans operate under a different sort of regime, but biosecurity is always front and centre, particularly in the country areas.
Sorry, come under addition.
It's
land
not
managers should have
RA.
biosecurity.
It's
but
not RA, but you know.
as land managers, they should have biosecurity plans for those lands, particularly if they're going to be along rivers, and it's where we see a lot of invasive species come in as far as weeds. So
they'll work with the other agencies in particular who have biosecurity that they're charged with. Yep.
Thank you.
They will.
Thank you, Minister. Can businesses operators using business toll accounts claim relief through the personal toll cap? And if so, how many are currently doing so?
I'll put that question to Mr. Wells on the toll cap. Have you got it?
Can you repeat
Say it, yeah,
Can business operators using business toll accounts claim relief through the personal toll cap? And if so, how many are currently doing so?
I'll confirm that 100% for you shortly. I think I'll just need to check that. That'll be a policy with Transport, obviously, but I'll check that. Service does administer that, but I'll check that detail and come back to you.
Okay, thank you. And when it comes to tolls and toll rebates, what is in place for small businesses and sole traders?
I have it here, but it's really... Where is it, the tolls? Got it there? We got it? I'll come back to you, Mr. Fowler, with some more detail, okay?
Okay.
I've got it here somewhere.
Okay.
Thanks.
We'll give you a little time and come back to that. Now, might just turn to energy. Minister, do you accept that under the AER's 25-26 default market offer, small business electricity prices in New South Wales will rise by up to 8.5%?
Look, I think that question's better directed to the responsible minister, which is Minister Sharp. And I'll come back to you on the toll relief. There was 40% rebate commenced 24th of January 2023, and sole traders with the personal and or business toll account were eligible for a 40% rebate. Customers had until 30th of June 25 to claim it for the accrual period, and the toll relief rebate TR3 scheme commenced in January 2024 for the personal toll trips in a vehicle registered for private use.
So in terms of the business rebates, they ended in financial year 24 and could still be claimed up to financial year 25. Is that correct?
That's what it says. Customers had until 30th of June, 2025 to claim. Yep.
So there is no business toll relief available at present?
Not at present, no.
No, there isn't? And is the government looking at any toll relief for small business at all?
That will be a question with the Minister for Transport, and something I'll raise with him. Thank you.
So you do undertake to raise that on behalf of small businesses across New South Wales?
Yes.
Thank you, Minister. Minister, with respect to the energy issue, and again, I accept that this is not in your portfolio, but it does certainly affect small businesses all across New South Wales. What's the government's plan to address these electricity price increases for small businesses across New South Wales?
There is some relief that's available for both businesses and household, but I will take that one on notice
Okay.
to make sure it's precise.
Do you have any targets to reduce small business energy costs at all?
That's something that the Minister, Sharp, that's a question for her in terms of how she deals with that, but I'll come back to you.
Nothing that you're advocating in the small business sense or the small business portfolio at this
I'll
stage?
always advocate for small business for everything, Mr. Farlow, so be assured.
Okay, well, we've many assurances today.
I might seek further assurances, Minister.
What is it?
The rural farm businesses receive a land tax exemption.
Say it again.
Rural farm businesses receive a land tax exemption. However, we're now seeing land tax applied to vineyards, for instance, that have diversified to have a cellar door or tourist operations in this. Now, this is in one case, $140,000 hit per year to one of these businesses. Surely that can't be good for small business, for agriculture, for tourism, for our regional communities.
Look, it sounds to me as though they've diversified into other areas, other business areas. And look, it also sounds like the primary producers grant. If you get over 50% of your income off farm, then you're not eligible for certain things. And it's in that same category that I see that.
They've diversified within their industry, though.
But a lot of people diversify within their industry, and it depends where they get it. So I think you're just now sort of stabbing around to find things to ask.
I'm asking on behalf of
the vineyards,
many cellar doors throughout the central
Well, they
west,
haven't
Hunter
come to
Valley.
me yet, so none of the vineyards have come to me yet on that particular issue.
Well, can I ask you on their behalf, Minister, whether you can look into this, and as you
I'll
just
look
sort of
into
said,
it.
to advocate on behalf of those.
I'll look into it.
Something that falls well within your remit, Minister, the transition from response to recovery.
Yeah.
After an event, and specifically after what we saw on the Mid-North Coast, how do you rate that transition after this event?
Look, in a sense, 2019, 20 and 2022 are my barometers, with the bushfire and then the floods and a whole range of other things in between. And looking at, there used to be what I called, it was almost an artificial separation between response and recovery. And that doesn't happen now. So as soon as the response has started with our combat agencies, recovery is there with them on the ground and getting ready. So it can be a quite seamless sort of handover, but also it's not just cut off one night, the SES or the RFS or whatever is gone and then it's recovery take over. They work together. Mr. Lanyon can give you operational detail, but it's certainly more seamless and there's a lot of work together. And I saw that start to operate too in Broken Hill. When we had the power outages and things in Broken Hill, that they're on the ground together. And that's one of the things that I have sort of been driving. Like there's a number of things that I expect to happen, and that's one of them, that it's more seamless, that they're together, so that it's not one just up, they don't just up and leave and then, the next one. So as part of the recovery, remember I talked about the recovery process and the checklist, that's where we need to go.
I'm not doubting that there's been improvements made, and as I say,
there's
if
improvements
there hasn't
made.
been improvements
Look,
made,
it's
then
continuous improvement. And that's the attitude we've got. That's the attitude I've got as Minister, and that's the attitude of the Reconstruction Authority, that it's continuous improvement. And we sometimes joke, people talk about lessons learned, and we talk about lessons ID'd. They're not learned until we've actually implemented them, and that's what we've been trying to do.
Well, what were the lessons learned, lessons ID'd from this transition after this event?
Well, we had the recovery coordinator there, so that was a good thing, that he was there with his team on the ground, so we had someone there and still there, around that response phase, so that's one thing. Also, we had the recovery centres set up early. We had people in them. Service New South Wales was on the ground. We had a lot of the agencies on the ground. We had the stock removed, the stock losses from the properties really quickly. So there were lots of things that were done quite differently. I think it was 18,000 to memory, 18,000 cubic metres of waste was taken away. And I think it was 18,000. And it was done quite quickly. So there are a lot of things, but everyone was working together, in tandem.
The community volunteer program, community response program, volunteer response program.
The one that was with the SES?
Was run with the SES.
Uh-huh.
I think one of the things that could be looked at closer is what happens with that program when the SES step out and RA take over. Have we looked at a solution to that yet?
Yeah, something.
I'll let Mr. Lanyon answer, because we are in discussions on that.
Yep.
I know exactly what you're talking about there.
Yeah, Mr. Barrett, that's one of the things that we're working at. I think if I just go back to what has improved significantly, the New South Wales Recovery Plan talks about a formal transition over, which was something that we didn't have. So now very much the Reconstruction Authority walks alongside the combat agency there, and I think we had 25 LGAs that were subject to the disaster here, so we had a staged handover, so that there were certain areas within those LGAs that could hand over more quickly from the SES to the RA. The actual handover of the incident management team, so from the combat agency across to the RA, and then the tasking of those community organisations, is absolutely something that we will improve on, and that was one of the reasons when you spoke before about Mr. Owens as the recovery coordinator. One of the things he will now advise me is the circon of where he sees areas for improvement. I know the community recovery, but then also, if you remember, we had Disaster Relief Australia resources on the ground as well. How do we actually get all of that together, line that up alongside the combat agency as it transitions out? This one was quite a unique set of circumstances. So the SES at the same time they were working through to transition across to the Reconstruction Authority. That got hastened because there was a potential for further storms down the coast. If you remember, it was rolling storms. That is absolutely one of the things we need to do. How do we engage the community as part of that transition across to recovery, have some community-led and engaged recovery, whilst we put it alongside the DRA and the work that we do? I think the Minister was absolutely right about speed to action of recovery centres. We had about 15,000 people through recovery centres and recovery assistance points, which is the largest I can remember in one of these events, but how quickly that happened. So we've absolutely got some work to do. That's the point of getting after action reviews done. What do we learn from it? How do we get better at it? How do we go? One of our challenges over the past 12 months is that time to actually learn from, take on board, improve, has been affected because we've basically rolled out of one disaster into the other. So that's really our work now. That was the reason here that we wanted a really good after action review to say, what have we learnt? What areas have we got? Because I want the community involved in recovery.
So then how do we, I think we were lucky with the community group that were picked, but how do you identify who that community volunteer program is? Because if the person that comes forward at the start turns out to be a lunatic or a shonk, they're not elected, they're not appointed, there's no governance around that. How do we sharpen that process?
I'll respond, and I'll also like Mr. Lanyon too. Yes, I've seen that in real time, Mr. Barrett. But there are groups in communities that people automatically gravitate to, like in Ugara, for instance, Sean, okay? So, and same in my area, same in the mid-north coast, we saw it. So, and people go to them because they know they're the go-to people. They're doing the work or they've done the work. And where I live, it's Resilient Lismore, which now has a Northern Rivers Alliance of such groups. So we know them, like locally, and we have to have that local input. And that's what happened, up north as well. But yeah, how do we do it? How do we get the governance around them? I want them more actively involved. And I also want to be in a position where we have St Vincent de Paul, we have the Salvation Army, we've got neighbourhood centres. I want them to have a more active role too on the ground in recovery. This is some of the direction that I'm, working towards. But I think in 5 months since I've been Minister, I can't remember, is it 67 LGAs? Is it, how many? 67? I know, it's a lot of LGAs have been in a natural disaster declaration, so I've literally been running since that time.
And then I guess Mr. Lanyon, Minister said a lot there, but that transition from at 1 minute they sit under SES and then at that date they sit with RA. How do we manage that?
So that is the work that we've got to do. Obviously, when we talk about a seamless transition, the actual work from responding to recovery is fairly straightforward. Running an IMT and having the experience to actually task is something that as an organisation we need to lift. We work very much with the combat agencies and keep them engaged. So the way that community organisations were tasked at the tail end of response goes over into recovery. So that's our work to do there. When you said how do we do it, it is challenging because communities are not homogenous. So in some areas, there are very well exercised community groups that have done this a lot. They're very easy to work for us. The focus for us in one of our functions is preparedness, so community preparedness. How do we identify beforehand which community organisations are available? How do we get people to align with that so that we can work in a constant system right across the state, noting that communities will be different, but how do we work with them? That is the challenge. But sorry, can I just say, but I have seen significant improvements in 12 months, even if I go back 12 months from where we were in transition, engaging communities and aligning them with the recovery phase.
And
you can go on, Minister, if you wanted to add to that.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, even when say the floods, SES, they have those meetings, they bring everybody in, RA is actively involved in those as well, all of that. So everybody's working at a more operational level, practical level. I've seen it, and that's a good thing. So that's where we're heading. And yes, I called it before, it was just, bang, it was response, then recovery. But it's far more seamless now. Still needs work, that continuous improvement, but it's happening.
Yeah, Minister, I just want to draw your attention to some comments that the Treasurer made at the West Ryde Chamber of Commerce with respect to the coordination of the Business Connect program, which we know is now over, the Business Bureau at Service New South Wales and the New South Wales Small Business Commissioner. And the Treasurer said we want all three to start working with each other, and that does mean that the operating model of business support services for the New South Wales Government does need to change. What's the change that's happening in terms of that operating model for small business?
Anything that's operating to support small business, any program, it's ideal if they're, coalesced or collaborate. And I wasn't there and I don't know the context of what, the Treasurer meant when he was talking about it. But for me, that's how we have to operate, always, coalesced.
Okay, Minister, are there any plans for the Small Business Commissioner to be abolished?
No.
No?
I love the Small Business Commission. I love the fact that it's an independent entity and, it's something that I really value and the state values.
And when will you be appointing a new Small Business Commissioner?
Well, when I came into the role as Minister, there was an acting Small Business Commissioner, and Mr. Frost, and he left to go to Queensland. And then we still have an acting Small Business Commissioner, Miss Ellis, and it's under consideration because there had been a process. I wasn't involved in that. That was before me. At some point, there'll be a process where we'll make it permanent.
Okay.
Yeah.
By the end of this year?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. I thought we might have an assurance on that one.
I don't know.
Okay.
But it will definitely be made permanent at some point.
Okay. And with respect to the Small Business Commission and taking into account the Treasurer's comments, how do you as Minister see that the Small Business Commission can be better integrated with the business support services provided by the New South Wales Government?
What I've seen to date, and again, it's only a few months, is that there is quite a good coalescence of the Acting Small Business Commissioner and her office, particularly with Business New South Wales. So that's what I've seen to date. I've seen some of the work that's being done around the right-sizing regulation, looking at the compliance of regulatory things, just a whole range of things that I've seen the Small Business Commission office do. And their work on mediation is fantastic, with the retail leases and that. So I don't see a problem, but I do see that we always have to make sure that, they're coalesced.
Thank you, Minister. Now, Minister, I'll return to Business Connectors. I'm sure you would
sure
not be surprised.
No, I'd be disappointed if you didn't.
Yes, and the Business Bureau, I think, Mr. Wells, you outlined in budget estimates the other day that it was $12.1 million. Is that correct in terms of the number for the Frontline Business Bureau resources?
That's correct for the frontline resources.
And that's for this financial year, the
that's correct.
25-26 financial year. What was it in the 24-25 financial year?
Do we have that?
It was in a different structure.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah.
It's hard to compare the 23-24 figure to this year because we've been through a process to combine that team with other teams into a customer care and business bureau division. So it's a very hard comparison. The best comparison is those frontline budget we confirmed as $12.1 million, which is pretty much equivalent to what it was prior.
Okay, so there's no increase in terms of the funding for that?
I think there was some money that was confirmed through this year's budget process, but it's pretty much equivalent to what it was the year before for those frontline resources.
Okay, and when you say the Customer Care and Business Bureau team, that's the $12.1 billion, is it? For all of that team?
No, that's for the Business Bureau.
Okay, that's just for the Business Bureau, not for the Customer Care and Business Bureau team. Okay. Correct. And when you were referring to the 75 FTE before, that referred to just the business concierge, not the Customer Care and Bureau?
Correct. It's our frontline business team, so it includes the specialist roles we have and team leaders and business concierges, that whole frontline team.
Okay. So just clarify that again, sorry. So the 75 refers to the business...
BCs, the business concierge roles. Then we have specialist BC roles. Okay. So for we have identified Aboriginal business concierge.
Is that 4 roles still?
For the Aboriginal team, yes.
Well, no, oh, sorry. So 4 roles for all of those business concierge teams? The Indigenous, Women in Business and Childcare, Rural and Regional Specialist and Called Specialist?
No, there's more than 4 roles. There's 4 roles for the Aboriginal component of that.
Okay.
Yep.
So how many roles are there for each of those components for the Indigenous?
So Indigenous, it's 4 roles.
Yep. And the Women in Business and Childcare?
It's just a Women in Business role.
Okay.
So that's
on the list I've got here, it's listed as Women in Business and Childcare.
Right.
Has that changed? Or?
I don't ever recall it being called that.
Okay.
Yep.
I will hand up, if we can, to you just so that we can have a look. I haven't been able to get it all redacted, but just so that we can all be looking at the same thing. Thank you. So I won't seek to table it because it's got the information, but I will seek to have it handed up. So, sorry, the Women in Business, how many roles in that function?
There's 1 specialist role, and then our business concierge team are across the offering to support women in business.
And then the Rural and Regional Specialist?
There's 1 specialist role.
Yep, 1. And that's Specialist West, that's how it's described here, is it just...
It may be located in the West region, perhaps.
And then the called specialist, is that one person or are there more?
There's one person as a specialist,
Okay.
but again, the team are across the offering in that space.
Okay. Are there any specialists assigned to the big business? What's listed
No,
on there?
that was an old. That's an old structure.
Okay. Old structure and
Yep.
redundant now?
Correct.
And the rural and regional specialist north, I take it there is not a north and west distinction now and it's just a rural
I'll
and
need to
regional
double check
specialist?
that for you.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Now turning back to some further Business Connect questions. Minister, you outlined previously with regional and disaster resilience that this was a role that was effectively conducted by the Business Bureau and the concierge services. Wouldn't you agree that in terms of pivoting and working with businesses that was a vital role played by Business Connect in working with individual businesses to tailor their offerings?
Well, look, I'm sure some of that would have happened, but the primary responsibility has been with the business concierge, as you know, based on the experience that I've had with disasters over quite a few years. It was all, Business Connect was never mentioned, and I'd refer people and I'd interact with business concierges. So, you know, it was always with business concierge with the disaster recovery.
And Minister, can business concierge help small businesses gather the financial data that's needed to apply for grants?
They certainly can help them. They can guide them. That's what they do. They help guide them. What's, you know, the criteria is there and they guide them.
Okay, but they advise them on what the criteria is, but they
They
don't
advise
work
what the
within their business for the
criteria is.
information?
Well, they can guide.
Okay, well,
That's what they do. They're like shepherds. They shepherd things.
It seems like they're guiding them to the criteria that's outlined on the website.
Well, you can say that, but that's not how it happens in
But
practice.
do they work with that business in terms of being able to
They do.
procure that information?
They work with them. They help them. But it's up to the business to get the information, but they certainly help them. They guide them.
Now, just in terms of the services provided by the Business Bureau, in contrast to Business Connect, will the Business Bureau provide services outside of business hours?
It generally wouldn't provide services outside business hours.
Okay. But Business Connect advisors do work outside of business hours with...
Well, some of
Our business concierge team work outside business hours when they attend events and business chamber meetings.
But in terms of a business seeking advice from them, it's a 9 to 5
It's not
line,
9,
isn't
no, it's 8 to 6, and I'll
8 to
just
6.
check that for you.
And they do work extra hours when I've seen them in recovery centres and
They
in
work
disasters. They work a lot.
We work in disaster times and in disaster areas. We work on weekends and align with the Reconstruction Authority recovery assistance points hours.
Okay. And I don't dispute the work or the hard work of
Very hard
the
work.
business
Yeah.
here on the Business Concierge, but just in terms of the offering of services and when people can actually access those services.
Yeah, look, I think you'll find our business concierges are flexible, and once they establish a relationship with a business, they will work with that business to accommodate needs.
Okay, outside of business hours with an individual
In
business?
some cases, that does occur.
Okay. And with respect to some of the discussion around the Business Connect service and the distinction, I think Mr. Wells, you said to Budget Estimates on Wednesday that they were complementary services, Business Connect and the Business Bureau. Considering that Business Connect will be gone, who's going to provide those complementary services?
It will be the Business Bureau and the Business Concierge. They'll provide some of those similar services.
So, is there going to be a change to the offering of what the Business Bureau and the Business Concierge provide at present? And the services they provide?
I've got a chart here. I'll just share some of this with you. It's a comparison table. Business Bureau versus Business Connect. There's Business Bureau, free personalised relationship-based ongoing support, contact point for all stages of small business life cycle, in person, over the phone, live chat. So that's the Business Bureau. And Business Connect, free personalised specialised service from experienced small business owners. And it goes on like that. So I do have a table and it shows what's done. And in fact, Business Bureau does a lot more.
Would you mind tabling that table?
Our
I don't know if that's...
offering is...
All right, I would even ask you, Minister, if you could take that on
No,
notice.
it's,
If you
not,
could take
I'll
it on
take it
notice.
on
We can
notice and give you some information to show the chart of who does what.
Yeah,
Yep.
if you can
That's
take that on
fine.
notice.
Minister,
Sorry,
through
Ms.
you,
Gibbons.
I think our current offering is always evolving, so we're always looking at the areas that will help businesses, looking at feedback and trends. So some of those core capabilities that Business Connect offered will be picked up, like business planning and things like that. So it won't be the same, but I will say that our team are always evolving their offering and tailoring it, working with business on a one-on-one basis, very similar to the way in which Business Connect connected and had that ongoing relationship.
Minister, have you spoken to any business concierge staff about their views in terms of the Business Connect program ending and their capabilities to be able to provide that same support to business?
No, it's not my role to canvass them on that. I meet regularly with Service New South Wales, also with the Acting Small Business Commissioner, and my conversations are with them on what will happen going forward.
Okay, so you haven't had any direct feedback or direct interaction with the business concierge staff as to their capabilities and their view with respect to Business Connect coming to an
It's
end?
not my job as Minister to interrogate the public servants, but I do know their capabilities through experience, particularly as local member and working in disasters. I know how good they are.
There is no doubt as to how good they are, but when you speak of the capabilities and experience, I asked previously, and I don't know if Mr. Wells can advise, in terms of the requirements for the business concierge staff in comparison to what is required of the Business Connect advisors.
Yeah, we also took on notice to provide a role description, so we'll do that as well. And we talked, I think, on Wednesday about business concierges having a broad range of skills, particularly around customer service experience, that a lot of them, as we talked about before, have small business experience. They've run small businesses, many of them themselves. Obviously, there's a big role in interpreting and all the planning information and assisting businesses across that life cycle that we've talked about. The content and materials that we've used through the Business Connect program are available to us still, so we own all that material and can reuse that ongoing. And of course, as we've talked about, they have a very big role in assisting businesses through disaster recovery as well. That's been a big focus for the past couple of years at least. So
Business Connect advisors have a requirement in order to qualify that they have 100 points from a table and that they have one requirement from each part of the table. Firstly, these include academic qualifications, either a certificate for in business, finance or marketing related, a diploma business, finance or marketing related, advanced diploma business, finance or marketing related, or a bachelor, master's or postgraduate degree. Secondly, they're required when it comes to business advisory and consulting experience to be either a business consultant or advisor for less than 5 years or more than 5 years with a certain amount of points. And then they're also required to have small business experience, either being owned or operated a small business for a minimum of 18 months, established a small business from scratch, expanded a small business, i.e. significant increase to turnover and or growth in employees. All of these have a series of points attached to them. Do business concierge staff members have similar requirements?
Not exactly the same criteria, no.
Okay, do they have any criteria?
We employ based on the role description. We're happy to provide on notice, but again, a lot of those skills would be part of a number of the team that exists at the moment.
But it wouldn't be part of all the team.
Not necessarily, and again, they're different. We have a lot of different roles in the business concierge frontline. As we've talked about, there are some specialists that don't focus so much on the depth of business planning and other things, but more on engaging with multicultural communities or Aboriginal communities or other things. So there's different. They were quite complementary, but distinctly different.
You have more than 100 people who are out there as Business Connect advisors with all of this experience at the moment. The plan is that they will be replaced by 75 people who some may have some of these skills. Don't you see, Minister, that this is a loss for small business across New South Wales?
I don't think we've said they'll be replaced by 75 people.
Okay, well, where are the additional people coming from then? There doesn't seem to be a change to the budgetary allocation. It seems like there's 100 odd advisors that no longer will be there to support small business, and the answer is that there's a business bureau with business concierge representatives, and there are 75 FTE of them. So how is it not a loss for small business, Minister?
The Business Connect is, as you know, it winds up in the end of September, and it was a generous service. It was 8 hours, up to 8 hours. Not everyone used that, but it was up to 8 hours for every business, and that was free, and it was determined with the budgetary requirements that the state has with frontline services, with the increasing spend that we have in disasters, that it would discontinue. And I come back to the point I made earlier. A lot of those businesses went way beyond the up to 8 hours that was available through Business Connect, through Service New South Wales, that they have their other sources. Some of it is online, some of it is they go and pay for it. There's a whole range of things. There's a whole lot of free things elsewhere they can do. So they weren't just reliant solely on up to 8 hours from Service New South Wales. They have other options.
And no one would suggest that Business Connect answered everything with 8 hours.
It didn't.
Minister, what are these other free services that businesses can now avail themselves of?
Well, I've simply Googled and found a lot. I've found on how to set up a small business. I've found some of the webinars. I've found quite a few just through Googling myself, because, of course, I was interested. You know, I wanted to know more. So some of them are available. If you're in local business chambers, they run events. They're free. And as I said, I encourage every small business owner, be in your business chamber, be in your regional chamber. They do a lot of events. They are free.
So,
and
Minister,
I'm sure you would have attended some.
Minister,
I've attended some.
Is your suggestion that these specialist small business advisors, hundreds across the state, can be replaced by Google?
I didn't suggest that at all, and you're verbling again, and it's a rather silly statement. Do you know,
but
I
Minister,
didn't suggest that at all.
Your answer that businesses that
I was saying some
Google,
of the
small business can Google too.
And you're not crediting small business with the ability to do things beyond Business Connect. Our small businesses in New South Wales are very competent, very engaged, do a great service. They will be able to do other things. They'll still be able to access particular services through Service New South Wales, through the Business Bureau and the Business Concierge. There's a lot that's available there.
Minister, there is no doubt that there are many fantastic small businesses across New South Wales, but there are also many, as we've gone through the figures and on your Series 2 data, even 5,600 odd businesses that have gone to the wall. Many of these need that specialist tailored support. Don't you think that it's a case that Googling isn't enough for those businesses?
The figures on insolvencies are trending back to pre-pandemic. We know that. And again, I come back to the figures that have been like this forever about small businesses' failure rate in the first year. We know there's a lot that fail. We know 3 to 5 years. Like that just stays like that forever. That's not going to change. And businesses will survive without Business Connect.
Businesses will, Minister, but many businesses won't. And
no,
there
many
have been
that's an assertion.
Well, no, Minister,
Mr.
it's actually backed up
Farlow.
by the Accenture report that showed that...
I read the Accenture report, and I look for the hard sort of it was qualitative. I looked for the quantitative data that backed that in, and I didn't find it.
Well, Minister, you would have seen in that Accenture report that it said that when it came to businesses in the Business Connect program, only 1% led to business
It
failure
did.
compared to the 13%.
That's what I'm referring
which is the national
to.
figure.
And that's great. I looked at it and I thought I looked for the actual data to back that in, where they got that from. I didn't find it.
And Minister, it also indicated in that report that in line with the national average, those companies that were using Business Connect, 12% had reported that they were considering closing their business pretty much in line with the business failure rate. And so there's a huge dramatic turnaround.
And some businesses have reflected, thought about that even, and they've contacted Business New South Wales. They haven't gone to Business Connect. They've gone through Business Concierge. They've managed then to not close their business. So that's one input. Business Connect was one input into small business.
It was one input, but it was a very valuable input that was turning around businesses. Also showed that when it came to its cost-benefit analysis, that it was returning a BCR of 1.5.
Look, if it was so grand, why was it was never secure funding? That had never been done. If it was so valuable, it should have been secure funding way back, and it wasn't.
Minister,
it
you
was seen
outlined
as something that could be looked at every year, and it was.
Minister, you outlined yourself that this is a program that's been running for 30 years.
Well, the federal
and it was
government
continually
set
funded
up,
for 30 years.
but it changed. It was originally started for startups, and then it morphed into something else. And that same report that you refer to actually said it needed to find clarity. It had become a bit confused.
So, Minister, after 30 years, you're the minister who's killing off Business Connect. Is that a legacy that you're proud to leave?
My legacy as small business minister will be a good one, because I'm a fierce advocate and I'll make sure that small business gets every support that it can in New South Wales, in the government and across every agency. And that's happening. The government is doing a lot in the small business space. I mean, I could hark back to what didn't happen in the previous government. I tend not to go there. I'm not that partisan in the way I approach things, and there was just a lot that didn't happen.
Well,
Never
Minister,
happened.
things that
And
did
we're
happen,
doing
as we've
things
discovered
now,
in these budget
but
estimates,
we're
were
paying for procurement. We're doing a whole lot of other things. There's money being spent elsewhere.
Well, Minister, things that did happen that aren't happening now that we've discovered in this budget estimates. There was toll relief for small business when it came to tolls across New South Wales. There was energy relief, and there was Business Connect. Is it any wonder that more businesses are going to the wall than ever before?
They're not going to the wall because of that. Like, the insolvencies are they're trending to pre-pandemic level. That's the Reserve Bank of Australia.
Minister.
Yes, Mr. Barrett.
When it came to declarations after the Mid-North Coast flooding event, how come it took so long for places like Cundall Flat to have their declarations made?
For the locality?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're talking about the locality, personal hardship, I take
Yeah.
it? Yeah. The two things I'll say about the localities, how it was determined on localities. First of all, it was dependent on SES. SES, did the assessments. We got them from there on the places that had been hit. This is how I'm advised. And then I think it was 142 localities first up. And again, I'm going to memory, not checking the figure, but that's a memory I have. And it eventually went to 330 localities. We kept adding them, particularly as members of Parliament, the local members of Parliament brought it to our attention, and we kept adding localities. Again, and this is where I want us to go, and we've started just preliminary conversations and work. I would rather the personal hardship be where it used to be a long time ago, with St Vincent de Paul, with the Salvos, with the other agencies, with the neighbourhood centres. In my view, they do it better. They're on the ground, they know everyone, and that's where I'm going to lead us to that place for the personal hardship.
Sorry, specifically to Cundall Flat, once it was declared, I understand I only then had 4 days to apply.
I think they got longer, and Mr Wells can answer, because we did have conversations about that. I was concerned about that too, Mr Barrett, and made sure we did take some action.
We'll get you the exact
Yeah.
dates for that location, but we did extend
We did.
suburbs that were added through the process of the grant did have an end date extended right to the end of the process.
They did. There was
It was well into-
flexibility, Mr. Barrett, I have to say. Service really stepped up on that.
Ms Higginson used the term winners and losers before, but I don't think there's many winners after an event like this. But
There's no one.
how come when we compare the flood assistance given to one event, it is so different to a different event? And obviously I'm talking specifically about Eugowra and Cabon, where they missed out on things like the Resilient Lands package that was provided in the Northern Rivers, the arts and cultural program that was provided up there. There was a towns and villages business activation program provided up there. Yet the Central West, only months after, missed out on these programs. And I'm not by any way am I suggesting the Northern Rivers shouldn't have received these programs.
Yeah.
But you can understand that Eugowra and Molong and the Central West feel like they've missed out on these things.
I've been there obviously and met with local community members and with mayors, and Central West have expressed that to me. I mean, I wasn't the minister, I wasn't in government at that time when the Central West floods happened. So but I can understand, like in every disaster, we all want the same. I said I wanted what Queensland got as a local member when 2022 happened. So that was what, we were looking at. We want what they've got. And I know that happens. That was why in the Northern Rivers, when we had the Community Leaders Forum, we did determine that principle of equity in the funding that we had, that would be divvied up in an equitable way across the region. As Minister now, I'm very mindful of damage in communities and very mindful of what communities need. How would I put this? With recovery, it implies even the word that we're going to get back to exactly where we were. That's never happened after any disaster, even though that's where we'd like to be. And any government who provides funding and support in disasters, they can never totally fund a whole reconstruction to put everybody back where they are. But I understand community sentiment, Mr. Barrett.
Are the doors closed on these funding programs, or can we still push for these sort of things to help those communities?
Look, I'm always open to listen to the needs, like I am on the land, the resilient lands. I know they want that. That's really clear. I've listened. Remember, they didn't get funding for the pipelines, for the water. That didn't happen, okay? You and I discussed it. You wrote to me, we talked, we did that. And I banged away at that. We got it. We got that in the budget. These were some of the things we had to prioritise. And also, I thought it was unfair that they didn't get it. And I have to say, I did talk to the Premier about that.
So one of the reasons they didn't get that, and we have discussed that, was the sort of set up under the disaster recovery funding arrangements. Last budget estimates, we learned that was being looked at. There's been the Colvin review and some other work done on it. How close are we to seeing new guidelines for that?
Yeah, the DRFA, Commonwealth set a lot of the parameters around that, as you know, but with the Colvin review, again, that was tabled probably October last year, and it is on the agenda with the state and territory and federal ministers, so it's on the agenda. And there are some things I would like to change with that, Mr. Barrett. I won't go into all the detail, but, I have a list.
Specifically, again, to other areas that missed out.
Yeah.
Upper Lansdowne, I think, was excluded from some of this funding. Is that still the case, or is that something that can be revisited as well?
What was it excluded from? Was it personal hardship?
Let's say yes.
I think, no, the list is now closed, yeah.
Right, okay. can I just jump in there as well?
Yeah, sure. Minister, I might table for you a case study that comes from a Business Connect advisor that's been shared with me, but effectively this shows some of the value of the Business Connect advisory service in comparison to the Business Bureau. So this, and you will receive this in a second, but initially the client had sought advice from the concierge team. They were advised to register a business name and they ended up paying $192.50 to an online company. Additionally, they were charged $77 for a domain name, and no framework guidance or support was provided on how to use the domain, build a website or strategically establish the business. After the Business Connect advisor had worked with them, instead of paying that $192.50, they were directed to be able to pay $45 by dealing directly with ASIC rather than going to a private provider. They were explained how to select a domain name strategically for branding and advising that can be structured more cost effectively over a 3-year period instead of paying a rate for just 1 year. And they were also provided advice in outlining the next steps in their business, compliance requirements, pricing structure, target markets, etc. Minister, don't you agree that this is part of the advantage of the Business Connect program and the support that Business Connect provides and potentially saves businesses, in this case, about $200?
I'll read this. Thank you.
And you'll take it on notice, will you?
I'll read it. Thank you.
Just to indicate, Minister, there's another 15 minutes for the opposition, even though the bell's rung. The committee's just made an agreement.
Thank you. No government questions?
We will come back to
They
that.
will.
It's all right, I'm teasing them.
They'll have some doozies, I'm sure. Minister, how concerned are you that this seemingly imminent decision on the Great Koala National Park will have a negative impact on forestry industry on the North Coast?
Look, it's a clear election commitment of, the government, the Minns government, and there will be a Greater Koala National Park, and we can have both. We can have the Greater Koala National Park, and we can also have an industry, a timber industry. And I know as Minister for North Coast, of course, I'm very mindful about this. So, but it's the community values koalas, we know that, and the community also values the timber industry. So we have to make sure that we do both.
So you're confident we won't see a downturn in the productivity of that industry?
I'm confident that the government will manage to protect koalas because that's what the community at large wants, but also keep a viable timber industry. I know the timber industry quite well. I live in it.
Can I get a very brief update on where we're up to with the Tell Your Story Once program?
Tell Your Story Once was clearly, it was a recommendation from, locals and members, but it was also in the O'Kane-Fuller inquiry, one of the recommendations. It is a work in progress. Service will be able to give you more detail, but earlier on I mentioned that I'm looking at all of those recommendations from the 2 flood inquiries and how they're being implemented, and I'm just working through that now, Mr. Barrett. So that's one that I'm particularly interested in.
And can I just ask you to provide on notice, Minister, it was probably easy, the releases that you mentioned, the press releases you mentioned about the exiting of David Owen and also the change to the small the grant that we talked about before to exclude farmers from that.
Happy to do that, and I'm sure I did a release, but I do so many.
Yeah,
so
I understand. That's why I've asked it. Yeah.
I do have to check.
Yeah.
Then I think, have I done the release? Was it radio? Was it this? Was it that? I'm always responding. So anything I've got, you'll have.
Minister, with respect to payroll tax,
Yep.
Does your government have any plans at all to increase the threshold for payroll tax to ease the burden on small businesses?
No, there's no plans on payroll tax. I think I've been lobbied on payroll tax in New South Wales for the whole nearly 4 decades I've been in public life. I don't think that will change, and I'm well aware of what the payroll tax issue is, you know, and I looked at all the states and territories as well. But no, there's no plans. But do I get lobbied about it from local members, from other people? Of course I do.
It wasn't the question, Minister. But Minister,
but I'm answering the question in the way I see fit, Mr. Fowler.
Minister, in looking at other states and paying payroll tax, have you had a look at when small businesses are required to pay payroll tax in other states and at what rates, and how New South Wales compares?
Look, I have. I've actually got a table of it, and I've got some that, you know, are thresholds, but the thresholds and rates in New South Wales do compare to other states. They're not too out of kilter, and fewer than 10% of businesses in New South Wales pay payroll tax. So it's not a large amount, and the payroll tax, as we know, it plays an important part of the state's revenue base. It contributes about $13.9 billion to the budget.
It's about the same
and I've never seen really any government make a move on it, okay?
Well, I'm not asking you at this stage to abolish payroll tax, although that is something that, you know, I think I might have outlined in my maiden speech.
I'm
but
sure
have
we
not been
did
able
a
to
lot in
deliver on.
we did our first speeches, didn't we? All of us.
But in the same sense, Minister, when it comes to the payroll tax threshold, that of course was increased several times under the coalition government, has not been increased at all under the Minns government. Have you done any modelling as to how many more small businesses are now captured by that lower payroll, tax threshold that has not been increased?
No, I haven't done any modelling in the 5 months I've been Minister.
Okay. Is that something you'd like to undertake, Minister?
I don't see any changes coming soon, Mr. Farlow, as much as you might
that is
want to prod me on it.
That is the message for small business then. Okay. I think government time. I'm the chair as well, so watch out.
That's right. So look, the only government question we had, Minister, was just earlier on you were speaking about the huge importance of bipartisanship during disasters, and I just wondered whether you could reflect on how important that is and the problem that's created when people engage in political point scoring instead of focusing on fixing those disasters.
Look, when people are impacted by disasters, there's trauma. There's trauma in communities, and I think we need to step gently with people, and we won't be able to do everything people say they want in any particular time, and I just think it's better to step gently. And I'll go back to 2022. I was quite a fierce advocate. I think Mr. Lanyon saw some of it on the ground as a recovery coordinator, but I worked in a really constructive way with then Premier Perrottet. I even worked with Tooley. I worked very well with the Deputy.
Even worked with Tooley.
I like him. So I worked really well with all the ministers and the Minister Steph Cook and all that. And yes, I'd go on about what we needed and I'd go hard, but I was also mindful that you don't get everything that you demand or want, and you have to make sure your community don't feel they miss out on things, and you have to guide your community to a better place. And I've been working with the local members like the Mid-North Coast and the Hunter, and but I do have to say the leader of the National Party, I don't think he understands that word about working in a non-partisan way across this, because sometimes his statements are things like, nothing's happening. That's simply not true. And if people read that nothing's, happening...
It can be quite harmful, can't it?
It disturbs. I say it disturbs, communities. And so we have to just tread a bit more gently with disasters, because it's playing with people's lives and the impacts on their mental health. And, I saw one yesterday. It's about abandonment and betrayal and words like that. They're just nonsense. It's just absolute nonsense. So, it's really important that we do the best we can. We are political people. We are politicians, we're members of parliament, we're in parties, but in this space, particularly with disasters, tread gently and be really mindful of people.
Thanks, Minister. That's the only government question.
So I have one question to fit in at the end, as it
It's
might
not
be
Business Connect, is it,
No, it's not
Mr.
Business
Farlow?
Connect. No, this one's for
Sorry.
Mr. Lanyon.
Oh, good. I'll have a break.
While we have, of course, appreciated your service as the CEO of the Reconstruction Authority, are you up for another job?
I am very honoured to be the CEO of the Reconstruction Authority, and I'll continue my focus on that role.
Good try.
Practically a politician as well. Very diplomatic answer.
Good try, Mr. Farlow. I do want to do something. I need to correct a couple of things. When I talked about, is that all right?
Yes, absolutely.
Chair?
Of course, yes.
When I said about the disaster, you know, how much we're spending now from 2019, even before, I said 158,000. I meant 158 million. Okay. And I also said there were 10 support staff in the Business Connect in Service New South Wales. It was actually 9. Okay. And also, this is a Resilient Homes program. I said initially it was 750 mil. I've always said that. I don't know why, but I know it's 700 mil. We got 350 mil each from state and federal put in. So, for the record, good to correct it. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, thank you, Minister, and also to the government officers for attending today. The committee has decided that we have no further questions. So while we would normally break for the lunch break here, we have decided to end the hearing. But thank you all for your attendance today. The committee secretariat will be in touch in the near future in regards to any questions that were taken on notice, but also in regards to any questions that are supplementary questions as well. But thank you all so much for your time this morning, and thank you, Minister.